Welcome to the August 25th special meeting of the Marquette City Commission. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Could you please rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk, if we could have the roll call, please.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Baldini?
Here.
Commissioner Cambenzi?
Here.
Commissioner Conley?
Here.
Commissioner Frazier?
Here.
Commissioner Plord?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Reynolds?
Here.
And Mayor Campana.
Here. Could we have an approval, a motion to approve the agenda? Mayor Pro Tem Reynolds.
I move that the agenda be approved.
Is there a second? Commissioner Plord?
I second.
All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed? That carries 7-0. Announcements, I have none. We're going to move to our first public comment. Public comment is a time when you can address the commission, or you may reserve time to speak on the agenda item. I'm going to open public comment. Does anybody wish to address the commission? Or where are we at? Over here? Okay. You have 3 minutes to speak. We need name, address, city or township.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Christopher Connolly, and I'm a resident of 306 Jonathan Carver Road. I was just stopping by to express my thanks for the repaving project that is currently taking place in Shiras Hills. It's refreshing to live in a community that ensures that all of the infrastructure is maintained and kept in a good in a good way. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Nice to hear compliments.
He also met Frank Barrett over the street. That's for my other address, though. So save that one for next time.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to address the commission? Anyone? Okay, seeing none, we're going to close public comment. We're going to move to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda, please? Commissioner Frazier.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
Would there be a second? Mayor Pro Tem Reynolds.
Second.
Any discussion? None? All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Carries 7-0. We're going to move to new business, which are our budget presentations. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Chief Financial Officer Gary Simpson.
Thank you, Mayor, and we certainly thank you and the rest of the city commissioners for your attendance this evening. This evening is the last of 4 scheduled budget sessions. Tonight's theme is, well, what I like to refer to as Friends of the City of Marquette. These are areas that aren't really departments of the city, but they do provide services to the citizens of the city. And we'll begin with the library, then we'll get into the Downtown Development Authority, the Brownfield, and then Local Development Finance Authority. And if you're looking at the schedule, I have 2 number 3s tonight, so I apologize. The bean counter can't count beans, apparently. But then tonight we're going to end up with the police department. Normally they would have been the first night, but the chief couldn't make that time, so we rescheduled him for tonight. Then we're going to have a budget wrap-up session, and then hopefully at the end, you will schedule a public hearing for September 12th in order to seek citizens' input on the budget as a whole, and then hopefully adoption of the budget after that. So with that, we'll start with the library. We didn't have their information in time when we put the budget books together, but I did hand out that information at the last meeting. It will go into the next budget book, which will be the adopted budget. But Andrea is here, and she's new, so please be kind and gentle. And we do have actually 3 new people tonight, so we'll hope that you're kind and gentle to all of them. So thank you, and take it away.
2 months, I'm not new anymore, right? I'm Andrea from the Peter White Public Library, and I could bore you with all of our statistics, but I thought what I would do instead is kind of give you a recap of what it's like to be the new director of the Peter White Public Library. And just some of my initial impressions and kind of where the library board would like to head in the next couple of years. And then if you have any questions about the numbers, we will hit on a few of those items too. Feel free. And looking back through the notes from last year and what Pam presented to you all, I'm pleased to be able to present something a little cheerier. I feel like we're in a better position than we were last year. Things aren't quite so scary, and I'm happy to be able to present that. I'm sure that you have heard that people in this community really love the Peter White Public Library. And I guess I just want to give you a feel for how unique that is. I've worked in 5 different libraries in my career. 4 of them have been public libraries, and 3 of them I served as a director. And never have I seen such response to myself, to the library, from the community as a whole. You know, I've heard comments like, "Oh, I love the library, I went there as a child." You know, you hear those kind of comments a lot. But here you hear, I went to buy a bike from a lady in Ishpeming, and she said, "I drive to the library every week to have story hour with Jenny. I love it," you know. And so she drives her 3 children under 3 from Ishpeming, where they have a library, to Peter White because she loves our library so much and she loves our staff. And I just think that is really a testament to what Peter White does for this community, and not just the community that we actually serve with the tax base, but the community as a whole. Getting ahead of myself on my notes. This library is really more than just a library. It's a really important part of the community, and I thank you all for the support that you show the library, and I look forward to working with you in the future and making sure that Peter White is vibrant for years to come. Now on to the fun stuff, the numbers. A little side note about the numbers is that often the numbers don't really tell the story, and year to year numbers are hard to compare because things change. And I just want to put out a little bit of, you know, these are the numbers, but there's a lot of backstory there, and sometimes the stories kind of get forgotten when you just look at numbers. But I've provided you with a Reader's Digest version of our budget forms as submitted to you already. So you've seen most of these numbers, but I wanted to kind of go through a few things that may look strange year to year and give you just a little bit of background on some of the changes. So on the revenue side, we are relying heavily still on fundraising. Revenue is about 11% of our budget currently, and it's actually a little bit more than that when you take into consideration that we have built in some money for possible tax tribunal payout. So really the actual spending money, the actual money that's going into library services, it's a little bit more than 11% of our budget comes from fundraising activities. There's a couple lines I just wanted to explain revenue-wise. The Friends of the Library revenue has been moved from the funds held at the city to our development fund. So when you look at the revenue, it looks like maybe the Friends aren't making any money anymore, and that's not really the case. The funds have just been moved and are now sheltered in our development fund. And then we have added a fund balance line, and that's the funds that we've set aside for tax tribunal payments out of our fund balance. Any questions for me yet? Okay. On the expenses side, you know, obviously the majority of our budget goes to staff. We're running about 65% of our budget right now goes into staffing. That's not abnormal for a library. Libraries tend to run right around 70%, between 60 and 70% of expenses go to staffing. And really that's because staff is our biggest asset. You know, a lot of what we do comes directly from staff and not necessarily from tangible items. Our library materials, I'm sad to say, is only about 6% of our budget. I wish it was higher. We're working on ways that we might be able to boost that a little bit, but currently it's about 6%. Supplies and professional contractual. There's a few items in there I wanted to hit on. We do have a library cooperative that we work with, and it's the Superior Land Library Cooperative here in Marquette. And to give you a little background information on what the cooperatives do for libraries, especially the Superior Land Cooperative, they run our library automation system. So there's a number of libraries that are part of this cooperative, and we all share a computer system. And that computer system handles everything from patron data to all of our MARC records for our materials, and makes that all function for us. If we were to buy a system like the Cersei system we use outright, we would spend more just buying the system than what we spend in the cooperative. And the cooperative takes care of all the admin of the system. They run all of our reports. If we have any trouble, they take care of it. Plus, it's a collaborative system when we share materials with a number of other libraries in the state. So it's really good use of our money. And I just kind of wanted to give you a little background on what that is and what it goes for. The other thing that we've built a little bit into in the professional contractual line item this year is we're looking at some capital improvements. I know you all are somewhat familiar with the issue that we have on the outside of the building right now with the facade. And we've already sought some professional advice on how we can fix that. And we're looking at getting some engineering plans together so that when we get ready to look at how we're going to finance that, we have some good numbers to work with. So we've built that into the budget, as well as we're hoping that we can potentially hire a space planner to come in and take a look at our space in general and give us some advices on how we might use some spaces a little bit differently. We've had a lot of requests from the public for more quiet study spaces, especially. It's very important for NMU students, but also we have some adults who would just like a quieter space to study. And, libraries just aren't very quiet. We have a lot of children. The children's room especially is not quiet, but what we would like to do is find a space on one of the upper two levels where we can add some divided off study rooms that can be more dedicated to quiet study. And so there's some things like that, it's really hard for staff to make those changes because you get but this has always been this way, and it's just hard to make those changes. So we're hoping that we can bring in a consultant who's really good with space and can give us some suggestions that way. And then the building's going on 16 years old, so we've got some carpet issues. And if you've been up in the library outside the Shiras room, we've got some carpet that's buckled, and it's kind of a tripping hazard. So we want to get some of those things taken care of as well. We continue to increase efficiency in the building. We've built in extra funds to cover the increases in utilities that we're going to see in this upcoming year. And actually tomorrow we're starting the process of replacing our fluorescents on the main floor with LED. And that should almost offset in 2 years the cost of electricity for us, the project. So we're looking forward to that change. Questions on expenses?
Tom, go ahead.
Thank you, and you're right, the library is much more than just a library, a place of books in this community. It truly is, it's a community center, as you're probably learning. Just a couple of questions. We are doing, is it Johnson that we're hiring as an evaluation of all of our electrical power needs? Is that the organization, Mr. Manager?
Yes, it's Johnson Control, and it's a thorough review of everything that we have.
Will they also look at the library?
Currently, they're not part of that study, but certainly maybe we can talk about it.
It's we're looking for efficiencies. They're going to come in and tell us if you spend X, you'll save Y. And I just thought I'd mention that. But Michael can follow up, or the manager can. Secondly, on the expenditure side, you have private sources, 125, and I presume those are people just donating money to the library? Okay, and then you said you had fund balance of 57. You're spending money there. How much money do you have in your fund balance? So if you spend this 50, what do you have left for next year?
Rick has said he feels like by the end of this year, we'll have pretty close to 300,000 as
Okay.
a fund balance.
All right, okay,
Yeah.
okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your efforts, okay? And
Yeah.
welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Andrea,
Yes.
under expenses, line item number 956, the leave reserve fund. I think I know what that is, but could you explain that?
What's the line number again?
956.
Oh, leave reserve fund.
The leave reserve fund.
I believe that is actually misnamed, or we've used it. That's actually where our, where the tax tribunal payout
Right.
money is.
So you're down to 60,000.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And you'll notice back budgeted for 2016, we had budgeted 219
Okay.
at the very beginning, and we haven't needed that this year yet.
Do you have to build that up? Do we have to build that up?
The tax tribunals? Yeah, they've been doing it the same way we have, where for those the cases that were filed, we had reserved fund balance, and the library did the same thing. And once these cases are settled, then we can release that fund balance. And then we've also had some more cases recently filed, so I think that's what they're trying to show is that, actually, I'm not sure how they did their budget. I wasn't involved in it, but I think that's what they're trying to show is the reserve for the tax tribunal
Okay.
cases.
Will this 60,000 cover what they may have to pay?
For the new cases, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it should more than cover
Okay.
that
okay.
amount.
And just another question, going back to the first page, it just shows registered borrowers and attendance are both down.
Mm-hmm.
And I assume that's because of shortened hours. Would that be the case, or?
Yeah, shortened hours has some play into it. Are you looking at this one? Oh, that one. Okay, yeah. The loss of Sunday hours, yeah, and then 5 hours during the week. It's made an impact.
I know there's more to it than just people coming in and taking all books, but
Yeah, and circulation statistics for libraries in general are going down. People are using electronic resources also, and it's just a change in usage of the library.
Okay, good, thank you. Commissioner Conley?
I'm always amused when I see a line item for adult books.
It amuses us as well.
But I guess I'm not clear on your fund balance. Are you adding to your fund balance this year?
Yes, we are. Yeah.
Okay.
And Rick could answer these questions about the fund balance a lot better than I could. I've really had to rely on him with regard to building that fund balance because he's worked with it for the last number of years. But yeah, it's built in there, and I believe before he left today to go to work on the Harbor Fest that he's been really involved with, he told me that by the end of the year, he's estimating we will have $300,000 in fund balance to carry over to the next year.
Yeah, is that sufficient to cover if that cracked wall does do the worst thing it could? I mean, and other tax tribunals that you could foresee?
The worst thing that could happen to the wall, it probably would not cover that, no. We have met with a series of different structural engineers. We've met with 2 different structural engineers and then a gentleman who was involved in the building project when the wall did blow out during the renovation. And they feel like it's stable enough. It's probably settled to the point where it's done settling, and that now what we're left with is fixing the facade. But we're not going to know that for sure until they actually start pulling the facade off to fix it.
Is
and
it
see
the
what's under
20-year-old
there.
facade or the 100-year-old facade?
The 100.
The 100.
Yeah.
So you can't go back and go after the contractor?
No, unfortunately. And, my understanding is, are you all familiar with the fact that the structure did blow out at the bottom? The foundation of the library during the expansion process. So when the project in the late 90s, early 2000 addition was going in, there was some utility lines that were added beside the library, and so a lot of ground was excavated there, and the foundation blew out. And so it was in October, and they shored up the library and closed it in for the winter and repaired it in the spring. And where that stopped was at the corner, and where we're seeing the problem is at the corner. So the theory is the new foundation that was added settled differently than the old part of the building, and so that's where that cracking has come from. But everyone is very clear to disclaim that until you actually start working on it, they don't know what they're going to get into. And they've been very hesitant to suggest much excavation to see what might be underneath there until they're ready to actually work on things, because if they excavate, they're afraid that they're going to have a similar issue to what happened before. So the recommendation is to do nothing until we're ready to do everything. But they also are fairly confident that it's not an emergency and that we can wait and do it right. Does that answer your question well enough?
Yeah.
Tom?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a quick question, maybe Gary, is it that we will pay off the bonds for the library in 2 years, 2018?
Yes, sir. And there is a dedicated millage for that the taxpayers pay, and it is scheduled to go off in fiscal year 2018.
Right, yeah. And that was for the capital campaign.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Mhm. And that was a mill?
It was up to $1.5 million, I think. We've been doing a lot less than that. I think for the FY17, I think it's scheduled to be 0.55 mils.
Yeah, because it's 330, so 600,000, 330 is a half a mil then, yeah, okay, thank you.
Yes.
Approximately, thank you.
Commissioner Cambenzi?
Just to kind of keep going on Commissioner Baldini's comment, I know when Pam was up here and now with you here that we did talk about possibly, expanding that millage or extending it like the public schools just did, rather than letting it expire and go for another one. And that's something, I don't know if you have any feedback. I don't know if the board has.
We, two things. We met with Gary and the bond council to talk about options. We are not able to extend it like the school board did. But what the library board would like to do is discuss having another bond come on right after ours is paid off, or time it so that there's not going to be a gap, so that we can, even though we can't actually extend the bond, we can say this is not a new bond. It is a new bond. It's not a addition in tax dollars. We're just asking you to continue paying into a bond, but it does have to be issued new.
And then just a few more comments. I know with expenses, you said there's 65% goes to staff. I mean, at the public schools, we're at 85% or more, just to show you, the cost of what an organization is. And I agree. I think it's kind of low, actually. But, I know people have said, well, you can just cut certain positions there. But I think when you get into that, I don't know.
Yeah, the staff is already feeling, and has been for a while, very stretched. And there's really not a whole lot of room left to cut, especially, and that's part of what I'm hoping someone who's better with spaces than I can figure out, if there's ways we can maybe staff a little bit more efficiently. But we have 3 floors, and there's terrible line of sight between all, there's no good lines of sight between the 3 floors. So you're really looking at having to staff each floor.
Right.
We've talked about if there's ways to not staff the upper floor, but then you get into security concerns and, there's a lot of things to consider there.
Okay, and one last question. This, I know Pam brought to us several times. There started to be a problem, with our state getting away from funding mental health, that the library kind of turned into kind of an all-day shelter. And I don't know if you've seen that in your short 2 months there, or if we've found, like room at the inn or other places where we can accommodate this population.
Well, I've been here through the summer.
Okay.
So I am told things change when the weather changes. We've not had bad issues through the summer. We have had to issue a few trespass warrants, but I think it's going to be a problem. I think it's going to continue to be a problem. And the staff right now has started working on a new safety plan because it is on the minds of the staff too. The population who need a place to go, and we want to help them. Librarians tend to be bleeding hearts, so we want to help, but there's lines there, and it's one of those situations that we don't want to be in, where we're trading one population for another population. So we're discouraging our good patrons from coming in by allowing this other population to be in the building. So we're looking for a compromise, but Room at the Inn has been willing to communicate, and I think there are things that we can do to help those lines of communication, going over, presenting like, this is good behavior, this is what we're expecting from you at the library right up front, so that maybe it'd be a little bit easier to control. I tend to be an optimist, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that your heart goes out, and I can't speak for the other commissioners, but I'd be interested in helping find a solution to that problem. I know our police force has kind of taken on the role of more well-being checks, and it's, the state didn't want to deal with it anymore, but we're still dealing with it on all governmental levels, so.
Yeah.
But I just want to thank you and welcome you to our community. I've heard nothing but positive comments, so thanks.
That's good. Thanks.
Mayor Pro Tem Reynolds.
Well, my first comment was going to be thank you for an optimistic budget and being an optimist, and you just said that you're kind of an optimist, so it made me feel good saying that. Because I just feel happy when you're sitting here and telling us about the budget. Last year I didn't feel so much happiness. I just had a quick question at the very bottom of the expenditures sheet. It says contributions event master calendar. I was just wondering, is that the arts and culture calendar, or is that going to be the new calendar that the Marquette Chamber of Commerce is trying to develop? Do you know?
That's the same calendar, right?
Well, I think the arts and culture have a current calendar on their own, and I don't know if it's something that just Tina Harris does on her own. And then there's going to be the master calendar that is being developed by the Marquette Chamber of Commerce.
The Chamber of Commerce and the Arts and Culture are working together.
Yes.
On the calendar, and they have approached the library board about participating in that calendar. We've put a placeholder in the budget for it. The board has not decided whether or not they want to support that project at this point in time.
Okay.
So it's in the budget as kind of a placeholder, but they still have a lot of questions about the project itself.
Okay.
So
that was my question. Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions? Seeing none. Andrea, thank you for your time here. In short 2 months, you've done well. You look like you have it under control. We'll see you in another year. But thank you very much for coming and for putting this together tonight.
you're very welcome. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next up will be the Downtown Development Authority. That's also page 202 in the budget books. And if anybody's watching on television, the budget is on the city website, and you can follow along with us and see exactly what we're looking at here. So,
thank you, Gary, and Mayor Dave, and commissioners. And my name's Jack Frost. I'm one of the members of the board of the DDA, and I have Mana Lang, that you all know. And first off, I just want to say thanks to Mana and her staff for all that she's done for the DDA and for the city of Marquette and the Downtown Development District. They do a great job in making improvements to our city, and I'm very happy to serve on this board. I'm going to cover some of our programs and statistics and a few items, and then let Mana get into the budget details. So I just wanted to, I believe you have the departmental fact sheet, and just wanted to recognize a few of the accomplishments of the DDA over the past few years. And the first one being the farmers market grant that was obtained in the amount of $71,000. And I think I would agree with most of our board, I mean all of our board, and hopefully most of you would agree that the farmers market is a great attribute to the city of Marquette. Mana's done a great job in raising funds for grants and facade improvements throughout our downtown development district in the amount of $1.25 million, and also had $2.8 million generated in private monies from developers. We've made, and you're probably seeing it right now, we've made many improvements to the sidewalks throughout the district, and those projects are ongoing right now. Seen landscape improvements throughout the district. Most recently, 7th Street, the West Washington Street entryway. And you can see there are several events that we sponsor, several events that we also support. I'm not sure if you have the recommended schedule of fees, if you have this sheet or not. There are a few, most of those are staying the same. However, there are a few that we're recommending increases, and those three are our parking meters. We're looking at doubling that from 25 cents an hour to 50 cents an hour. The rental at the Marquette Commons will be recommended to increase from $50 to $65 an hour. And the farmers market booth for the season, presently we're at $135, and we're looking at bumping that to $150 for the season. Any questions on that? I'll turn it over to Mana to go through the budget items.
Okay, I'm not going to go through detail unless you have questions, because our budget tends to be consistent over the years. So the only changes you'll notice is in an increase in parking revenues, and that will be due to hopefully the increase in parking meter fees, and also we're going to begin installing the new meters. We actually have 10 sample meters out right now, 4 on Barriga, 4 in the Commons parking lot across from the post office, and 2 on West Main Street. And they're the smart meters, so they take credit cards, change. We'll be working with a company. Once we implement all the meters, we'll be working with a company to do the pay by phone. So it's very convenient. We've met with the city police department, the treasurer's department, looked at different meters, looked at different ideas and the different technologies, and the committee recommended to the DDA board, which approved it, is to do on-street meters rather than pay stations that you see in a lot of other cities. The on-street meters are a lot more convenient, and we think with our climate that convenience is much more important than the reduction in cost to get 1 meter in. So right now the plan is to install replacement meters for all the 150 meters that are out there right now, And then to start adding meters, I know that that was one of the strategic initiatives that the City Commission charged the DDA with, is to implement this management plan. So we will, as we do projects, we'll start to add additional smart meters on the street to try to make the parking system sustainable. Right now, we're still losing money. And so we really hope that we can raise enough funds to not only sustain the parking system, but to continue to add to some of the improvements that we do downtown, so that there's additional funds available for that. So that was a little long-winded, I know, but. And then there is some funds in there for additional grants. We think that we're going to continue to get grants. I've already working with the MEDC. There's several people that are interested in the 231 West Washington Street building, which I know you'll all be interested in seeing. And there's several other building owners. Some of the buildings that are less desirable, there are people that are interested in purchasing those buildings. And we, as a DDA, will continue to put resources toward helping those property owners improve those properties. It's job creation driven, so you'll hear more about it when we do the closeout hearing for the grants that we're closing out right now and the projects we're finishing. But we're looking at probably about 30 jobs that have been created through the investment from the MEDC grants. So we're going to continue to do that. As far as expenditures, if you look down, you'll see we're at total of 1.862 million, 1.5 for operation, but that does include about 600 in capital outlay and capital improvements. I know we were talking about salaries. We run about 40%, I think, for our salary expense. So we really try to do a lot with a little, because we know that we're not like a business that we can increase our revenue by increasing our prices. So we are very cognizant that the majority of our funds go back into projects and back into community improvements. The farmers market does continue to run at a deficit. I do have some board members that would like to see it self-sustainable. I don't think that we can do that. You're gonna come to a point of no return where you start to charge too much, and the vendors aren't going to be able to participate. So it's a commitment. We look at it as an event. We look at it as a community, supporting the community with this. And I think we have probably one of the best farmers markets in the state. We do get recognition. So we are turned into a model as far as that. The line item that you actually see, as you drop down, you'll see farmers market operations. That doesn't include salaries. We're small. I don't really divide out the different salaries for the different functions. So there's really about an additional $45,000 for salary and benefits. We have a full-time market manager now and 2 part-time cashiers. So it's like running its own little entity. So that's just kind of something to keep in mind when you look at the farmers market. And then I do want to talk a little bit about our capital projects that we're planning. We have been going through and assessing the assets and have started to replace the brick pavers with the stamped concrete. The 100 or the 200 block of South Front Street and the 300 block of South Front Street was in really bad shape. The bricks were deteriorating. The curbing, some of the curbing is going to be replaced on the 100 block. Those projects are in place right now. They're in this current year's budget. Next year, we actually planned on West Washington Street, the 100 block. It's in fairly bad shape. We get a lot of calls. People are falling. The bricks tend to move. They fall out of sync with the concrete. However, I've had conversations with city engineering, and city engineering is overwhelmed with the amount of work that they have next year. They just don't have the staff to support us in that Washington Street project. So what we will do is we're gonna have to put that off till 2018. I hate to do it because I feel like we have momentum going with these projects, with these sidewalk replacements. But we could subcontract out, but I really trust our engineering department. And I think with that 100 block of West Washington Street, we don't know what we'll run into. There could still be some coal bins left under there. So I think it would be very difficult to contract that engineering project out. So that's kind of where we are with that. The North Front Street project would be a little bit simpler. It's only a block on the east and west. We may be able to do that ourselves. But the West Washington Street, unfortunately, we're going to have to wait another year. So that is in the budget for about $220,000 that probably we won't spend next year. It'll go into 2018. So that is one of the major issues we have listed, one of the major projects. We also have some additional parking equipment purchases in the budget, a new pickup truck, as ours was bought. The last one we have is 1999, so it's kind of getting there. It's turned it into an antique. And then we just have some things. We do need some new tables and chairs for the commons. It's rented a lot. It's used a lot. So it needs new furnishing. So we put that in the budget. We're also working with the city police department to help fund potential video cameras and a video camera system downtown. So we put money in the budget for that, about $7,500. And then some. And then the other item that is not a capital item, but it's going to be a large item next year. And again, that was part of the strategic initiatives that we were charged with, is we've put a substantial amount of money in professional service line to bring in some consultants and help us with some marketing plans and some branding. We feel like we have like 4 little districts within our district, and we need to find a way to better help those businesses and help visitors that come in and the community understand what each of those areas have to offer. So we will be working with that, and in conjunction with that, some wayfinding signage and some recommendations as far as wayfinding signage. So is that about cover it?
I think that's about it.
Okay. All right. I guess the only one other thing I have to mention is we do still have an outstanding bond issue. The balance right now is at 625,000. That will be paid off in 2026. It was $1.5 million. The majority of that. Oh, wait. Oh, I'm way down. Never mind.
Million.
Oh, we're still at $1.1 million. Okay.
Okay.
I'm glad you're the treasurer, not me. But that'll be paid off in 2026. The majority of that was actually used when we did the improvements to the Bluff Street parking structure. So that was about 1.2 million, and then the remaining of it will be spending this year to finish up these street improvement projects.
Mayor Pro Tem Reynolds.
Comment, question. So my husband works Saturdays at the Ordoc, and every single Saturday he has somebody come by and brag about how great our farmers market is. So just a comment. He has people come by for a beer with like bags of stuff and how wonderful it is. So question about the farmers market as well. I remember this came up before, and it was a few years ago. Do you think the vendors are going to complain even about the $20 raise? Because I remember it even came up before.
Yeah, they probably will.
Okay.
But
I remember,
when you look at it, it's like $1 a week or $1.50 a week to participate in this market for them. So they understand that, we have really, the amount of services that we provide, we have credit card, we do food stamps, we do the bridge card, plus we get the grant for the double up food bucks. So we do that. We do the hoop houses for help. There's a lot of reporting. There's a lot of effort that goes into this market. We do programming, with bands. We have educational sessions. So I think that they will find that the value outweighs the small increase in their fee, I hope.
okay, then the next one, as you were talking about video cameras with the police department, are we talking about through like the areas that still don't have them, that were like the glass, Like where the parking structure, where are we talking?
Well,
exactly?
we're talking about actually, the intersection, and I think the Blake can probably address this better than I can. I told them that we're certainly happy to help them offset the cost of this. But it would be more I think there's a trial one that's going up right now at the intersection of 3rd Street and West Washington Street. Oh, it's up? Right, well, there's a trial one up at the intersection. So that, yeah.
Okay.
And
all right.
then as far as the parking structure, there are already cameras in there, but they need updated.
Okay. All right.
Commissioner Conley.
What's owner's leverage in your,
That's the, for these facade projects or whatever the grant projects are, there's obviously a certain percentage of private owner's leverage that has to be put into those projects.
oh, okay.
So if you get a grant for 100, it might be 200, depending on the different, everyone is different. But that's the amount of money that the actual owner puts in.
I'm surprised you only get 43 grand in for your 2 mills.
And that's all we get.
Wow.
It is,
I would have thought it would have been more.
it's 18th, I can give you exact figures. It's just a little bit over 18,000 for 3rd Street. And it is about 25,000 for the original district. Now, the original district actually is about 80,000, but because of the TIF, the funds from the 2 mil from that go back into the TIF.
So your members are getting a lot of bang for the buck.
Yeah, they probably are, huh?
Yeah. I got a question about how parking works. Revenue's $261,000.
Yep.
Do you reimburse, the city provides the enforcement, but you
Yes.
get the money?
No, they get the money for the enforcement.
They get the money too.
This is just for meters and the permits that we, downtown employees
So
buy
you get the money
permits.
out of the meter, we get the money for the tickets.
Yes, yes,
Okay,
yep,
I get it.
yep.
They also maintain the meters for us too.
They do.
Yeah, we do that, yeah.
So that when the credit card doesn't read, that's your problem, right?
That'll be our problem.
Okay.
The new credit cards, did you try it?
No,
Oh.
I haven't.
Okay.
I should walk down there more instead of drive.
Because if you drive, you put quarter in the meter, it comes back to the DDA for the clean those streets.
Pretty soon I'll be able to just tap my phone on the meter.
That's
right?
exactly right.
Okay.
We're,
It's a $16,000 difference, but I see that expenses exceed revenue by about 16 grand.
Yep, we are carrying a fairly substantial fund balance so that we have money to do projects. And so we are starting to draw down on that, what we were planning on doing both North Front Street and West Washington Street this year. So that's about $600,000 in capital projects. We're also trying to build that fund balance so that we can do Berg Avenue.
The Barragray Avenue project, the whole thing, not just the sidewalks or something, but you're
Well-
talking about the median strip and the whole
Whatever the
redo?
project would be,
Whatever it
yeah.
is.
So, we're gonna need substantial money for that project.
Do you have in your mind any, when's that gonna happen? Any ideas?
I'm guessing 3 to 5 years,
Okay,
yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I am too. We're really right now, I think we're in more repair mode, spending some money doing that. And
That street is just crying for it.
I know.
It would just
it's
expand your
great.
downtown that much
Yep,
more. It'd just
yep,
be great.
Yep.
Okay,
I'd
thank
say
you.
3 to 5 years, yeah. And again, that depends on the city. It depends, because we're gonna have to work with engineering on that. So it depends on how much money we have to put toward that project. I don't think we can sustain another bond issue. We may, but I'm not sure that we would want to. We may want to refinance this one and, for a larger amount, but it would be my recommendation we try to pay cash for that Berg Avenue project.
Thank you.
Commissioner Frazier.
I kind of did a welcome to Marquette for your DDA. I met with the crew of the Pride of Baltimore, which is visiting for our Harbor Fest, and they were a great crew, and they're from all over the country that they're on that ship, and I got to see them when I went to Duluth this weekend and got to see the tall ships, and it was a fun time. But it was kind of like visiting Disney World. It was like way too many people, too many of your closest friends. But there were people from all over the state there. And something they had that was cool about Duluth was they had a walkway from one of the hotels I stayed in all the way to the downtown park. It was all enclosed. It was all concrete. I'm like, wow, that's cool. But then I'm thinking, as a city commission, I'm like, wow, this would be really expensive to build. We could never afford to build this. It was a really cool idea. They had cameras in there, and there's heat. It was, enclosed. I'm like, but there's no way we could afford to do something like that. We couldn't adjust the DDA, do something like that. I don't know where you put it. It'd be like going from like the Landmark Inn all the way to like Madison Park or something like that, all the way to downtown. It would be cool, but it would be just crazy expensive. So I don't blame you for not doing that. But one thing, I don't know if you thought about, you're getting all those you're getting people to look at all your parking stuff, and if you've thought about maybe putting something to the parking ramp. I know we have to do some repairs in the parking ramp eventually, but I know it's, nobody want to pay, but if you had a little gate or something like that to pay for entry to it, I mean, that's every place you go, every town you go to, down, bigger cities, you can't find free parking ramps anywhere, and I think it's great that we have that for everybody that visits town, but maybe something for you guys to look at, maybe some sort of little gate or something to prevent people from going in there, or like some sort of hourly fee. I don't know how you guys have somebody that worked that out. I'm not getting into that.
There's actually a sample pay station in the lower level of the parking structure right now. So we're trying to ease it in. The businesses in the Masonic building are a little iffy about it because they're concerned they're going to lose customers. It has been my what I've found is that people like to use parking meters. Our parking meters are always full because it gives them control. But there is a sample parking pay station in the lower level of the parking structure right now. So if you want to check it out, I would check it out. And I agree with you, that is part of the plan, is to eventually get the pay stations in the parking lots.
That's a great idea. So having a gate to stop if you could have a little pay station
Yep.
in each parking spot. Eventually, however you guys work at that, that's your thing. And I'm glad you're looking at that as maybe an option
Yep.
to look at. And I don't think people will be upset about it, but I think business shouldn't be upset because, every other place doesn't have free parking. If they have free parking, it's the big box stores. You have to walk a mile to get into the store, so I don't blame you.
And really, everything that is made through parking is reinvested. So, we're reinvesting it back in keeping the sidewalks clean and keeping the walkways clean and keeping the parking lots plowed. And so.
Well, we had the crew over, and we gave them local food from one of your restaurants, and we gave them local micro adult beverages.
Mm-hmm.
They were happy for everything. We told them, go visit our downtown. There's great micro brews. There's great restaurants. You guys go visit any of that stuff. They're great. Not only taking them to restaurants. My wife have gone to a couple of those pizza places on between 4th Street and 3rd Street, and it's just a lot of people trying to walk across the road there. And there's already been talk about putting like a little crosswalk there or something like that. Nothing has to be done, but I know a lot of people try and cross there and start going on the parking lot. I don't know if that's ever been.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that go to those restaurants there. If there's ever been like a talk of maybe putting some sort of crosswalk in there.
Well, that should come out of the city's. The city's has this parking study that I'm sure that part of that should be part of the city's parking study as far as pedestrian access.
Gotcha. One other thing I wanted to ask you is, I don't know if you've ever been asked, one of the crew members asked me if there's any place in town you could get woodworking tools. And I said, I had to think about it. I'm trying to think of all the stores you have downtown. I'm just trying to think there's nowhere. I said, well, you'd have to go to one of the big box stores or something like that. There's not really a place. I don't know if you've ever had somebody, I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever thought about that, but I'm not, that's not my specialty by any means, but I gave her a name of somebody that knows more about it than I do that might be able to help ask the question. And the only thing I thought about is maybe if somebody approached you to do like a hobby store or something like that. You can't have something just, I don't think anybody want to welcome just a woodworking store, but maybe like a hobby store or something like that might be something for you guys to look into. maybe if somebody asked you about making open up a hobby store or something like that, maybe we'd really look at it. I don't know.
Well, I'm hoping some of that comes out of the, some of the planning we do next year with this consultant, as far as some market studies and some branding and that kind of thing. So put her on the list.
Commissioner Plard.
Just a couple of comments. I think you've nailed the idea of the farmer's market. I think you're managing it just exactly right. I don't think there's anything else you can do with it. I think it really is an event that brings a lot of people downtown, and I think if you did anything more than the plans that you have, the backlash would wipe it out entirely. And I'm glad that you're sensitive to the balance that it takes. And I don't have a problem with the $16,000 difference myself, because I think that's part of that. And I hear that you're working hard to try to recover some of that, but there's only so far you can go, and I agree with you on that.
I agree with that.
Also, I agree with you on your assessment of the problems with Washington Street. And I think there's another issue that you haven't mentioned that maybe the public may know, maybe they don't know, but I think it bears mentioning, and that is that this is a huge construction season right now, and it's just difficult to get people, even if you had the money to do that project. And you may not be able to get anybody even until 2018 because of all the construction that's going on around. So
That's true.
I think you're handling that pretty well too.
Well, thanks.
Commissioner Cambenzi.
Oh, I'm going to keep going on the parking topic. When I was driving to Tech last year, it was cheaper for me to pay $3 to park in an all-day lot than to buy a parking pass. And I started calculating how much money they made off of this tiny, maybe 50 space lot for how full it was. And I came up with about $600 a week, $2,400 a month, about $25,000 a year probably on average. And I thought, oh, all they have is one of those little arms, you know. They don't have anyone policing it. And I think I like the idea of the common kiosk, but then to enforce it or to catch people, I just wonder if you've studied like the...
Oh, yeah, that'll tie right into the cities. That's why we have a pilot out there now. We won't do anything with those until we work through the city with their enforcement system.
Okay.
We absolutely have to partner with the police department and with IT and with the treasurer's department to make sure that all of that integrates. It does automatic enforcement. You know,
Okay.
when we did the improvements to the parking structure, we did the arm.
Okay.
I just had it taken back out because
You
we
did,
had
okay.
we had the thing to install it, and we got so many complaints because people said they couldn't get in. And now with
Okay.
the new technology with these parking stations, you almost don't need the arm anymore.
Okay. Yeah, I was shocked at
Yeah.
how much, when I sat there and thought, how many cars are in here on a Friday afternoon? This Friday with classes. This thing has to be packed and then seen per year. Because I noticed, it seems like most of the additional revenue now, this coming year, will come from maybe the metered parking. So,
Yeah, yep.
okay. I would be interested to see kind of,
See the reaction?
no, not that. yeah.
Okay, because I'm not looking forward to that either, Sarah.
Has anybody used the new parking meters? I'd be interested. Feedback? Okay.
I just saw them. Yeah, I pulled up next to it and I thought, oh, there's one. So, yeah. But again, I want to thank Mana for all she does. Anyone that comes to visit me certainly says that we have one of the best downtowns ever. And I know it's because you put your heart and soul into it, but also that you're very good at your job and the grants and moving progress along. So thank you, and thank your board and certainly all your staff.
Commissioner Baldini.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a couple, when do you plan to put the meter increase in?
Whenever you approve it.
Oh, thank you. As
So I'm-
Commissioner Cambenzi noted, parking is a revenue center and for
Yes.
universities also.
Yes, it should be.
The other thing, are you going to increase the number of meters downtown? Is that one of the plans?
Yeah, that was the plan. I mean,
Where?
anywhere, everywhere. All the streets. I mean, we're going back to on-street meters. They were taken away, I don't know, way before. I've been here almost 20 years, and we've never had on-street meters, but I know they did at one time. And, yeah, we
We're
need.
gonna move slow.
Yeah,
We're not gonna just put them in and charge everybody for,
it's gonna be a, it's
Right
gonna
away.
be a relearning process. Obviously, tourists and visitors aren't gonna care. But certainly our downtown, our city residents and our regional local residents are gonna care when they come down.
Couple other questions. How is Berga Avenue and Third Street coming? Because you've been
Well, Berg Avenue's there's not much we can do there without money.
money, yeah.
So, my goal would be that maybe we would find a developer that would want to come in and do some development, and then we could go to the MEDC and we could get infrastructure money to help support that development. But I'm not seeing that right now, but we never know. I just had a call from Cranes Detroit. So they're going to do a story on investment in Marquette. So maybe that'll inspire some additional people to buy some of our buildings that need improved. And
Thank you. And I'd also like to mention that we appreciate the support of the DDA for the fireworks operation. They do a great thing. And it's true that the downtown is a very vibrant place. And as you said, you got a call from somebody who wants to come in to even comment on it, write a story on it. So thank you.
Commissioner Connolly.
I'll bet you'll find with your new meters, you'll have less resistance. First, a lot of it's not the quarter that we put in the meters, the fact that we don't have a quarter sitting on the console. And if I can tap my phone or dip my chip card, I don't care about the 25 cents. I know most of us wouldn't. We just don't want to get a ticket because we looked on this console and the kid swiped all the change.
well, I hope so, because it's it's going to be a slow process. But I know that we have the support of the commission to move forward with this. It's part of the, it's part of the plan. The phase 1 is to get the meters on the streets and 2 of the parking lots. 1 being the parking structure with the pay stations, and we're going to move slowly. We are also learning a new system in the back office because there's a management system that goes with this. So we think if we can put the 140, replace the ones that are there now, and then in the spring start to put new meters in, that's the better way to do it. So you will see on Front Street, actually, our project on Front Street, you'll see meter sleeves in the concrete. It's ready to put the poles and put the meters in.
Will there be meters on West Washington, the 100 block?
Yes,
200, 300?
yes.
Commissioner Frazier?
Congrats, Mona. You guys do great work in DDA, and I would say that the Pride of Baltimore crew, we had what was their favorite port so far? And they said Marquette. I said, that's all because we're having your welcome to Marquette party. I said, no, seriously, it's so relaxing because being in Duluth with all the stuff they had to deal with there, Duluth was a great community, but it was like being at Disney World every day for those boaters. It was like 300,000 years close, and Marquette's been so relaxing for them, and they love the atmosphere, and they love everything in Marquette. One thing to think about with your pay meters, one thing I would be cautious about is one restaurant we visited while we were in Duluth had a meter us that said 25 cents for 15 minutes, and after 15 minutes, you could go 15 minutes only. And we walked into the restaurant, and the wife didn't want to stay because she's like, well, this thing says, they're like, don't worry about it. They don't check those meters that often. And so we had dinner in the restaurant. It was great. But that's something you have to look at is be careful, don't get a meter that gives you a restricted time. Obviously, most meters are like 25 cents for an hour or whatever it is. But this one said 25 cents for 15 minutes, and you can only do 15 minutes. That's the only thing you could do. That was the only thing. So, I could see business that would complain about that because then nobody could sit and have dinner or lunch or something like that if there's that short of a time limit, and you couldn't extend the time limit anyway,
Yeah.
Not that Blake's guys want to be out giving parking tickets all day, but it's just something for you to think about just when you're doing your parking meter assessment, just something to think about.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Commissioners? Well, Mana, thank you very much. Personally, I like what the DDA is doing. I think everybody does. I like when I go downtown or drive 3rd Street, and it's busy. There's always cars there. You go downtown, and pretty much every building is occupied. you just don't see that in other cities. So we're doing something right here. You know, you're doing a good job, obviously, and without enough funds, we'd like to get you more funds, but it'll come.
Well, that's why we're putting parking meters in, so we can add that money to making more improvements.
Well, let's hope there's lots of parking. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Next up is the Brownfield Authority, page 121. And I should note, this is the city's Brownfield Authority. The county has their own Brownfield Authority, but this is the city's Brownfield Authority.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to be here on behalf of the City of Marquette Brownfield Authority. And wow, has it been a year. Some of the projects, I'm sure you've noted a little bit of activity going on. We're very pleased to see the developments that are happening. We continue to have interest in projects. I would say we have a very discriminating board in that in a number of circumstances, people have come forward with projects that would be eligible for brownfield funding. However, my board typically takes a stance of, would this happen anyway, without utilizing the taxes? And in a number of cases, that has proven so. And so I guess I just want to reassure you that we don't have a rubber stamp board by any way or means. They look at projects, assess them, determine what it can add to the city, if it's detrimental to the city. And I think they've made very good decisions. You have the departmental fact sheet that I know you've had an opportunity to look at. Not too much to add to that. Basically, as a financing arm, we collect the taxes, we reimburse where appropriate, and you know, we don't have a large staff. I'm it. We do have a consultant who has added immeasurable value to all of our projects and continues to be involved in all of the things that we're doing, and has really, I think, assisted certainly the Brownfield Authority and the city through some very difficult, complicated projects. And so we continue to do those kinds of things. The first budget, the Brownfield administration, as I indicated, basically I'm it as far as staff, working 20 hours a week. One of the things I am looking at doing in the near future to be able to expand into some other service areas is I'm talking to Northern about having an intern who can start assessing some of the sites that could be potential brownfield sites, so that if someone comes forward, we have some really good background. That type of history hasn't been put in place. And we have applied for EPA grants in the past to do that, similar to what the county has received and currently utilizes. And we will be applying again this year. And that would help us to start assessing a file of what is out there, so that when someone comes forward to us, we already have kind of a profile of where to begin. The travel, that's probably the only kind of unusual category for us, and that typically is travel that I and some of our board members and the mayor and others have gone down to Lansing to MEDC meetings to help support our various projects, namely the Duke Life Point and Viridia. And the reward for that was being awarded the largest grant in the state at that time by the MEDC. So we think that's very important. Along the travel area, I have proposed to my board that in December of 2017 that we participate in the National Brownfield Conference, which is held every couple of years. Unfortunately, it's in December. Who wants to go to Philadelphia in December? But we have some great stories to tell. And in the December of 2017, we're going to have an amazing hospital here. We're going to have the full build-out of Viridia and a number of expansions to the Founders Landing project. So we've got a pretty nice story to tell. The Nestle Down B&B, of course, we're proud of having that be the very first recognized B&B in the city of Marquette. It goes to show that a brownfield can be flexible with little projects as well as large ones, and we like to show that off. The Duke Life Point, that has been just an extraordinary project. I was reminded the other day on a conference call that we were on that it's been 2 years in August that meetings and meetings and meetings and meetings and negotiations and attorneys and bond counsel and all kinds of activity has taken place. I hope that we can capture and tabulate the amount of hours that have gone into that, because it would be phenomenal. We are continuing along very well on that process and anticipate pricing the bonds Tuesday, correct? So we are moving along on that. Wonderful, wonderful cooperation with all the folks involved with that. The Viridia project, you have seen how quickly they are moving ahead on their projects. They're anticipating a September to October ribbon cuttings of these events. And I think we have a lot of excited people that are moving to that, like the UP Health Plan, among other things. And of course, the first extended stay hotel in the city of Marquette. So I think that that has a lot to be proud of for the city. The revolving loan funds, basically, you know, transfer in, transfer out. That was a fund that was set up prior to, well, since before I came on. The Cliffs Dow Fund, in talking with Dennis, well, you'll note that the large amount of money that goes out there are the professional and contractual funds. Those are for the testing of the site. That is continued. And in talking with Dennis, he's still awaiting word from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on a grant that he has written that is going to look at the property, because there's a lot of usable property there that could very well be utilized, and what an amazing area. And that's what he's hopeful for. But he's waiting and anticipates word on that at some point. And once that happens, it's my understanding that that property can be reutilized in other ways, tax-bearing ways. We still may have, you know, a small area that will require a continual testing, but great, great progress being made there. The Founders Landing Fund revenues, one of the high budget items this year in professional and contractual was the process of going from a publicly funded parking structure to a privately funded parking structure. And it involved a tremendous amount of city time, attorney time, Brownfield and other folks involved, city staff, in working through that process. We made it through the process. It's off and running. We had a meeting just today to discuss next steps with the funding that's going to be put in place privately for that project. And they anticipate being out there working within the next, well, they're waiting for some approvals now from the Brownfield Authority and the Banking Authority to get started on One Marquette Place. So good things are happening there. So those are basically the kinds of things that we're involved in. We still have a 6-member board and really need to have a full board. We have a very energetic, enthused, and wise board, but it's very difficult sometimes to get all of them together. So that's something that we will continue to strive for. And one of the other things that we have done, and I think I might have shared that last year, we developed a policy so that when projects come forward to us, rather than us taking on the expense of a brownfield plan, we ask them to fund it up front. And once everything is met from the city perspective, as well as from the brownfield perspective, and they pay the fee, then we develop the brownfield plan. So that's been a helpful thing for our cash flow process. So, any questions on what we're doing?
Commissioner Frazier?
Talk to you before the meeting. You guys do a great job. Everything you got going on is just crazy. And you guys just are wonderful at what you do.
Thank you.
I like your idea of getting somebody from Northern involved with maybe looking at potential sites and maybe check it. But who knew? I mean, I remember driving by the old Bunny Bread site for years when it was closed down because my friend has a business across the street. And who ever thought that would turn into what it is now with, all those, dwellings and the hotel and UP Health? Who knew it would ever turn into just that small little building? I always thought for years, I'm like, well, what can I use that building for? I couldn't think of anything. But, I mean, who knew that would turn into what it is now, which is just great. So I think it's a good idea. You guys could have, somebody that's going to school for surveying or appraisal or something, and, take some pictures of buildings and measurements so you guys have files. So when somebody contacts you about, okay, we want to access this property and do this property, at least you can go back and check your files and say, okay, this would qualify. We have pictures here to prove that it will qualify, or no, that won't qualify. That's a, old fast food restaurant or something like that. So that wouldn't qualify. So I understand what you're doing. I think that's great. So good luck in your fun stuff.
Well, and we're also looking, I guess I think immediately of someone in environmental or legal studies, certainly political science. So there are a number of arenas that I think there'll be some real appeal.
Our lawyer, Ron, loves legal studies, so he'd help me with that anytime.
Commissioner Conley?
Couple questions. Max fees, they're distributed through these different accounts.
Yes, that's
Is it
correct.
under professional and contract?
Yes, as is my salary. It's split out between the various.
Okay. And I was just wondering, because I didn't see anything on the first page for Mac, but he's worked.
Yeah, no, it's in
He's
each
worked
department.
while we pay him.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Cliffs Dow, there's tax revenue from that. Is that from BioLife?
Yes.
Is that are there any other taxpayers on the Cliffs Dow site currently?
I don't think so.
I think that's the only.
It's just BioLife. That's what I was thinking. Okay. That was my question. And you said one Marquette place is soon.
Mm-hmm.
There's an expression in Africa called soon come, meaning he'll be here,
Yes.
anytime. But is this soon come or is this year?
Oh, this is this year.
It is,
Yes,
okay.
indeed. Yes.
Commissioner Cambenzi?
Well, I'll start off and just thank Sherry and certainly her board. Kelly's not here to come through the door and talk to us, but it's just thank you for all you do, because I know this is getting more and more like a full-time job for sure for you. One thing you said was really interesting to me, and I know we've talked about, what type of policy do you have to kind of say who is eligible or who are we really looking for and who are we not? And you said one thing you kind of ask yourselves is, would it happen anyway? Mm-hmm. And recently there was one that the Brownfield said probably it's going to happen anyway. And now it's come to us to negotiate how we may or may not go through a deal with trying to help them with, utilities and connections. And I think it would be in our best benefit to maybe get a work session and just sit down and talk about whether, I mean, as a commission, we want to get into taking on projects, and if they are turned down by really what our committee and our board is kind of set up to do. You know, I've said all along that I think before we approve anything that we need to set a policy with developers coming to us and wanting to pay back the cost of utilities if they're building a new project. You do it for one, how many others do we do it for? You do it for one, what are the stipulations? So at the very least, I guess I'd kind of be interested in just learning how you go through yay or nay on the projects that come with you.
Well, I have a very talented board, and they look at things from 6 different directions. And their instincts, business instincts, their experience in the area. You know, we don't really have a formula. This is just something that I think when the board, you know, we go through a process where typically I vet the individual. And if it seems like there's, you know, some really good reason why we should be investing in them, then I bring in the consultant. And we further vet this individual to try to determine just kind of a cursory view of the benefit of it. So it doesn't really go to the board until we've done that. And I don't know, I just think my board is very observant. They're all business people, and they look at the kinds of things that, you know, I guess we don't have in a formula. But when you get the 6 of them together and they start asking the questions, it pretty much evolves. I will tell you that in a couple of cases where they have declined to support the business, those businesses are alive and well in Marquette and are paying taxes on new structures. And so I guess it's kind of a balance of, is this something that's going to have such benefit to the area that despite their ability to do it, would they do it? If we're looking at a building that is sitting downtown that's taking away from the charm, is that something that is worth this potential involvement?
I think I want to thank you for explaining that, because my fear is that sometimes people come to the city and if they're well known, or, you know, I mean, if they don't get what they want, they come to us. And throughout the past 4 years, I've seen it where, you know, people come to us and stand up on TV and say, give me a tax break or give me whatever. And the fact that you just explained the background that the board members have in business, I think that's huge. And I don't know if I want to get into that as a commission, as a commissioner, as one vote. I just don't know if we should be spending, I guess, the time to vet that. I don't know if we have the time to vet it like the Brownfield does. So just something to think about for my fellow commissioners. We want a tax base, but yet how much risk are we going to take out? So anyways, thank you.
You're welcome. And hopefully we do prevent some of that, you know, that you shouldn't have to deal with, because we all know when we sit down at the table and talk about what it is they're bringing, what it is we have to offer, and what the trade-off is. So, and we're pretty cognizant of the taxpayers that provide for all of these projects. So, you know, we have a very good board and a very astute board, so that helps, certainly helps me in my job.
I think what you're trying to do is, if I remember, there's just businesses out there to think the brownfield's an automatic free money, just say they want brownfield money. So what you're doing is you're vetting that. Mm-hmm. You're making sure that first of all, they have to qualify for it.
Exactly.
You know,
Yes.
and would they go in otherwise without it? And if they wouldn't, fine. So yeah, I think your group you've always done that. Mm-hmm. So, and then you got, you know, a world-class consultant in Mac McClellan.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You're very fortunate to have him.
Yes.
The other thing is, I think you work a lot more than 20 hours a week.
We're not gonna talk about that.
Okay, we won't. Okay. I have one small question. Under Founder's Landing expenditures, you got 2 professional and contractual entries. Maybe I missed it, but why do you have 2 there?
I believe, and not having Mary here, I looked at that too, and I think what that is we had a very large attorney fee in the process of negotiating the publicly funded parking structure to the privately funded parking structure, and I believe it was split out in that way.
Good, thank you. Commissioner Frazier?
The city's been in discussion with a property down by the waste treatment plant and as I call it, the Marquette Bed and Breakfast, place that our local police chief sends customers all the time. It's state-owned, the Marquette Branch Prison. I have friends that work there and I always joke it's Marquette Bed and Breakfast. I'm sure our local police chief has sent all kinds of happy customers down there over the days. But I don't know if that property, if that's something you've been in contact, I don't know if they've contacted you about maybe developing that or get money from you. I don't know if that qualifies as a brownfield project. I don't know if that's something that might be. I don't think it would be.
Now,
I
are
mean,
you talking about the Nordic Bay property?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That is, we've had some discussions with
Okay.
The group that's involved in that, and those discussions continue.
Okay.
Yep, and I
As long
know
as there's
they've
some-
also chatted with the city about that, so
I didn't
it's
know if
on
that
our
was.
radar.
I don't know if that's brownfield property or if that. I mean, you guys know what's brownfield, but I don't know if that's qualifies for under your reasoning. But
There certainly are, but there are
Okay.
a lot of other elements that will have to go into that. The public infrastructure is, I think, one of the key discussion points at this point. So, but those discussions continue with all parties.
not that I would want to live next to the waste treatment plant and down by the Marquette Bed and Breakfast. I remember I used to live on top of Sheriff's Hill, and we used to hear the sirens every once in a while, and the police would come up and look for escaped person from the Marquette Bed and Breakfast, and they'd find him at the bottom of Sheriff's Hill all the time. And I'm like, that's not something I'd really want to live close by. I mean, I know there's not been a lot of people escaping that Marquette Bed and Breakfast, but something I don't know if I'd want to live by.
But what have you?
If I could just maybe mention, the Nordic Bay property, that's one that, if you remember when we did the capital improvement work session, that was one at the last minute Dennis brought forward that the current thinking was it really isn't a very good brownfield project, but it's something that the city would like to pursue, and so we're looking at the city actually taking that on versus the brownfield.
You go, Gary.
Well, actually, Dennis came up with it.
Commissioners, anyone else? Well, Sherry, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Do a good job.
Thank you.
You've had an outstanding 1.5 or 2 years. Hopefully you'll keep her going.
Oh, it's fun.
Yeah,
When
good.
I'm not having fun, I'm done.
Good. Well, hopefully it'll always be fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is the second, number 3, the Local Development Finance Authority, LDFA. And this is one of the new people, so please be kind and gentle.
Yes.
This is Leslie Hartman. She's actually just newly elected as the chair. The former chair, Rosemary Smith, decided not to re-up because she and her husband are looking at moving out of town. And fortunately, the board thought well enough of Leslie to throw her into the hot seat here. So.
Yes, hello. And actually, Gary brings up a good point. We do have 4 vacancies on our board, so we've been trying to fill those, and so I've got a couple names this evening, so I appreciate that. And, sorry. I've gotten a couple names this evening, even talking in the audience. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to fill our board again. I guess the budget is pretty straightforward. We can get into that, but as you know, that our job as the LDFA is to oversee the SMART zone and allocate the TIF funding that comes in to them, and we review their budget. We're excited to have the SMART zone established. They hired their CEO earlier this year. I feel like he's doing a great job. I can go into details on that. I know I will be at the commission meeting on September 26th to give a further update on the Smart Zone. I guess I'll start if there's any questions on the budget itself.
Commissioners, anyone? Conley?
Is the LDFA and the Smart Zone the same thing?
They're two separate entities. The LDFA oversees our board oversees the Smart Zone. The Smart Zone has its own board and runs the organization of trying to bring new high-tech companies into the city. So they are two separate groups.
But the same objective?
Correct, yeah.
Are there other enterprises that the LD, and I get this, I always want to say LFDA, but the LDFA, do you have any other enterprise other than Smart Zone?
No.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
So the money you take in goes to the Smart Zone, right?
Correct. Yep.
It's just,
Yep.
you take it in, distribute it to them.
Exactly.
So that's what supplies and services are about.
Yes.
Okay. Simple budget. I mean, it's
Yeah.
one item.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Commissioner Frazier?
I feel sorry for if you have to ask Gary for any money. That's what I feel. I think you're doing a great job so far, but that's what I've heard from different departments is asking Gary for money is never that much fun, so.
Actually, this one is, it's set by a TIF. If you remember, we went through a very painful process to get the TIF set up. And it was very last minute that it was approved, and actually we were very fortunate because we were first in line and there were two or three others behind us, and ours got approved and the others were not approved at the time. I don't know if they're still waiting for approval or not, but we've been very lucky. We've had a few people put in a lot of work on this and a lot of people working on the city's behalf, and we've been very fortunate, but there's also been a lot of hard work that went into it, and sometimes you say hard work creates good luck, and that's probably the case here, but we've been very fortunate. And just to really expand on it, the LDFA is charged with collecting the TIF money, and then the LDFA contracts with the 501c3 organization to provide the Smart Zone services. So that's why there's two separate boards, and the LDFA is responsible for overseeing that operation, making sure that that what is intended for the creation of jobs in the Smart Zone is being done properly. And believe me, the state is also overseeing it as well. The state has a substantial investment in this as well. So it's in the early stages. And as Leslie said, there'll be a better update at the second city commission meeting in September. But things are going, the way we've really projected. We figured it'd probably be at least 3 years before we started seeing any substantial movement. And this is an economic development tool, and the city and state are both putting money into it, and we look at it as an investment because we aren't giving money just to give out money. And we are looking for a return by job creation and also helping to create additional tax base within the city. So it's a slow process, but we have a very good model up in Houghton, Hancock, because technically we are their satellite district. And I want to say, too, that they've been very helpful in getting us through these early stages as well. So
They've also been very successful, very, very successful. Hopefully that'll happen here. How often does your committee meet?
The LDFA meets quarterly.
Quarterly?
Yep.
And you need 4 members?
Correct, yep.
Okay. Hopefully people who are watching will consider participating, because very important committee, but, it's not overwhelming.
Correct, yeah.
Attendance. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioners, anyone else? Frazier?
You must be Gary's favorite group because you give him money, unlike him asking him for money. You give him money. She must be Gary's favorite group.
We like to think so.
Okay, anyone else? Seeing none? Leslie,
If I
thank
could
you very
add
much.
one additional comment. If any of you are looking on Facebook, there is the Innovate Marquette Smart Zone. They have a Facebook page. Even if you don't have an account, you can go on there. They're posting the events that they're holding and different updates. If you're so interested, you could look at that and just keep up to date too with what's going on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, next up is the carryover actually from the first meeting because the chief was out of town and couldn't attend, but we're gonna ask Chief Blake to come up and we'll start at page 74. Actually, I think he's gonna start in the fee schedule, so I'll let him give the page number.
Well, I'd like to first thank Gary for throwing me under the bus twice in one meeting. I do apologize for not being able to make the first meeting. I was moving my kids into college in the Lower Peninsula with my wife, and obviously I'm being punished. He was right, exactly. And obviously that's why I'm last. So, I do want to take a quick second to thank the commission and the city manager for the appointment to the chief of police. It truly is an honor to serve in this role. It's a real honor to represent the police department, the men and women who I think honestly make a difference in this community every day. I'd also like to thank city staff, especially Gary and Mike, for helping me in this transition, being my first budget hearing. So bear with me as I go through this, and I'm open for questions at any point. So I guess I would like to start with the fee schedule first. The only changes that I've made for our fee schedule, if you notice on page 35, that's our fee schedule. Our notary fee changed. We actually reduced that down to $15, and what we were running into is there's several notaries throughout the city, and there was different fees for different notaries. So what we tried to do is make a common notary fee citywide. So that's why we came up with the $15 fee. The second change would be under the 24-hour liquor license / inspections. We've seen a pretty dramatic increase in the request for 24-hour liquor licenses and outdoor service requests from current liquor license holders. Traditionally, we charged a $125 fee for that, which is a pretty substantial fee. And we based that on whether or not they were nonprofit or whether or not the benefits were going to go back into the community or not. So it was kind of a hard decision-making process to figure out who we were going to charge and who we weren't going to charge for some of those fees. So we opted to just come up with a flat fee for all of those. So I reduced that from a $125 down to $50, which we think is a fair fee based on our involvement in those issuance of those licenses and outdoor services. So those are the only changes that I've proposed for our fee schedule, if there's any questions. Sir.
A question about civil infractions in that second offense, third offense. On some of these offenses, barking dog, noise, stuff like that, do you get many second offenses?
Yes, we do. Specifically the loud noise during the college years, or during the college year, we do get quite a few.
Should we raise the second and third fines a little bit and maybe put a little more teeth into it?
I think that's an option to look at. I really do. I know noise violations are a big issue throughout the city, especially with everything that's going on in the city. Being my first year kind of evaluating the budget, I was trying to be somewhat responsible and just kind of learning the budget and the fee schedule a little bit more before I started making any dramatic changes. But that would be something I would be willing to look at down the road.
And animal problems too, dog at large?
We do get quite a few of those. A lot of our policy usually is to, if we cannot locate the owner, we automatically bring them up to UPAS where we're contracted through. and they are automatically cited for that. And that might be something that we could look at it for first, second, and third offense.
Not trying to put you in the corner or anything, but I mean, you probably have a feeling after all your years. Would an increased fine decrease the behavior? Does it have a deterrent value, do you think?
You know, it's hard to say. It's hard to make a determination on that. You know, most of the pet owners in Marquette are very responsible. So, you know, it's a small minority that we're dealing with on a consistent basis. Whether or not that's going to have an effect financially or not, it's hard to say. And it goes to, you know, similar with parking citations. Some people just choose not to pay it. So there are those individuals that aren't going to pay their fines, and then ultimately we come across them later on, whether it be through warrants or stuff. So, did that answer your question, or did I kind of round about it?
No. I think what you said was, since we haven't really tried it, we don't know if it would deter it, particularly with the noise. I kind of wonder, having done a ride-along and talked about noise and been to a particular place on the east side where the officer I was with said I go here every shift.
Yeah.
Maybe if, increasing the fines would just make them tone it down a little bit.
Yeah, there are certain instances when I went to school in Kalamazoo at Western, and if you were cited for a noise violation, somebody went to jail out of the residence. So those are extremes, in larger college towns. I don't think that necessarily would be effective here in Marquette, so to speak, but it's hard to say. Our best thing is to try to educate people regarding our noise ordinance and then kind of work from there.
Pro Tem Reynolds.
As to commenting off Commissioner Conley, in college we got a couple noise ordinance tickets and we didn't stop. So what they did was there was 3 of us on the mailbox, so they gave it to all 3 of us. And let me tell you, we did stop. So just from a personal experience, that kind of thing did deter, because $75 when there's 3 of us, we're like, oh, it's $25. Who cares? But when it was 3 of us, it was a lot more money.
And it is
So I think if it's like a third time, I could see how that could kind of deter the kind of thing.
And just to touch base on that, we do currently still do that. If all the renters are at the location, we do issue all the renters a citation.
Commissioner Frazier.
I have some experience in your UPAWS thing. That's interesting because my friend had a dog that my wife and I just happened to be up at UPAWS one day, and they saw this dog that looked like our friend's dog, and they called our friends, and they said, no, he's in the backyard, and he wasn't. So he must have got picked up by one of your people and brought up there, and he felt like his son went to jail. He was so embarrassed, and he went and picked him up, and everything was fine. But it's funny you talk about loud noise. I mean, I remember back in the day when I was in college, I was talking to one of the members from the boat that came into town, because he's from the town I used to go to school at. And I said, well, the organization I was with when I was in college used to have a lot of fun parties, and they used to contract with the local police to drive through the parking lot, and the organization used to talk to the police ahead of time, say, okay, we're having a party on such a date, and the police used to drive by the parking lot once in a while just to check on things, make sure everything was under control. Until the last one they had, I think, kind of got a little out of control, and there's a lot of your members, not your members, but police members showing up. But then the guy that filed all the complaints got his house cheap next door, and he ended up picking his house up and moving it. After the organization got shut down, he moved his house across town and put it on the river. I just couldn't believe that. I mean, why go through the work of summoning the police department? And that was the thing, he called 911 so many times that the local police chief there said, you call 911 one more time, I'm going to arrest you. Because he was just calling about silly stuff, like we had a volleyball game going on. He was calling about just silly stuff. So I can see your organization of like just getting so many complaints to just say, you know what, enough is enough.
Usually what we'll do is if we have consistently a problem area, we'll sit down with those individuals and just discuss it, and we try to work through those through communication and education. And then if all else fails, strict enforcement. So yeah. Okay. Any more questions on the fee schedule?
Commissioner Cambenzi.
Well, I guess going off of Commissioner Conley's comments, I mean, we were just talking about this with, you know, people that don't register their rental units, and how do you get them to do that, and now the, you know, the short-term rentals and all that, and, I mean, to me, one of the things was to, you know, start increasing that fine and going after a few of them, so that, okay, you're hit with a $500 fine if you are in violation of having a rental in your single-family home, or whatever it is. As soon as 4 or 5 people get it, you would hope that the rest would kind of do it, or they'd be turned in by those that had to pay it. But same thing, whether it's parking. I think a big thing in my neighborhood is kids that park over driveways. You know, literally half their car is blocking your driveway. And
That's not the only, yeah, you're not the only one. Yep.
yeah, and I've heard, you know, it's only $20. I mean, they don't care. So it's like, okay, you know, a noise ticket. What if the second one was double what it was? I mean, I honestly think that if people start to feel it, like Commissioner Reynolds says, you start to think about it differently, and maybe you're more willing to listen. So.
Well, if maybe we'll start booting cars, because that seems to be a real effective way to deal with parking citations. Is once a person's car is booted, they usually pay fairly quickly. So maybe we'll look at it. Okay. I guess we'll go to page 74.
We got a quick question.
So do we have, is there any consensus among commissioners to encourage Chief Rebolt to start looking at second offenses and increasing the fines on that?
If that was the case, I would be willing to support such a thing, and maybe more if towards the third offense kind of thing, that would be more, but I wouldn't be against, like, uppering the second as well.
Well, this isn't a work session, so can I make a motion? No, this is a general session. Oh, I can make a motion.
So you can make a motion.
Then I move the city commission direct the manager and working with the chief of police to come up with a schedule of fines for second and third offenses for those infractions that are listed on page 35 of the budget.
Second. Is there a second? Pro Tem Reynolds?
I'll second.
Discussion? Do we need further discussion? Commissioner Baldini?
Did we decide that a higher fine is a deterrent?
I don't believe we decided that. I think there was discussion on it. You know, and I think that's open for interpretation in different situations.
Pro Tem Reynolds?
So just as I go back, the motion was just for Chief to look into it though and get back to us, correct? Like it wouldn't. Okay.
Yeah,
I just
right.
okay.
My motion did not specify what those would be.
Okay.
They directed the manager in conjunction with his department head, the chief of police, to come back to us with a schedule of increased fines with that in mind.
And then we can
for
choose to
later
adopt it or
approval.
not.
Yes.
Correct.
If I
Do-
could, excuse me.
Go ahead.
If I could just mention that, I mean, we'd like to do that by the 12th of September, because that's when this budget will be approved. Otherwise, we gotta go through a whole nother adjustment to the budget afterwards. So would that be fair to say that if we come back with the final budget and this has some increases in it, that would work?
It would work for me because, but this is a high-grade problem. If it brings in more money, I think Gary can find, it's not like we're spending more money, which we would have to make a budget adjustment for if it brings in more money.
Right.
And hopefully it's so effective it doesn't bring in much.
Well, you know, my experience is that, you know, along with what Commissioner Reynolds was saying, that if you ticket the group, it usually is a fast deterrent. And you should also be aware that we do other things too. We mail letters to the landlords, notifying them of the violation. The landlords then often take action on their own. You know, if it's an extreme case, we sick the fire inspector on them. I mean, you know, we have other ways that we do deal with this. And I mean, I think a modest increase would probably be more effective than a large increase, because what tends to happen is once you make the large increase, people, and Sarah Reynolds will back me up. People just don't answer it, don't pay it, and then you get into this longer drawn-out process of court and attorney fees and things like that sometimes cost more than the actual fine. So I think it's fair to say that a balance of fees works. And I mean, we're willing to bring back some numbers, but if we could do it for the 12th, that would be just a little bit easier for us. But if you don't have
Commissioner Frazier.
What time is your loud noise thing go to? I mean, I remember back in the day when I was in school, I used to play loud noise once in a while too, and I remember watching my steps vibrate one time, and I said, "Uh-oh!" I ran down. Somebody turned my music up. I ran down, turned it down. A cop just happened to pull up minutes later, and I got away with it because there wasn't a lot of noise at the time. Somebody called and complained. The cop showed up, and everything was good because I ran down, turned the music down. But what time is the? That was back in the day, back in school. Not that I would do that anymore. But what time is the deadline now? For loud
Well,
noise.
there's not, I mean, it's between 11 and 7, I believe, yes.
we actually created the original ordinance on your bedtime.
Right.
11 is about my bedtime, so you're right.
Commissioner Cambenzi.
Can I just ask if there'd be a willingness for a friendly amendment to possibly look at page 33 where they're set by ordinance, but they're parking fines, and those are a lot of parking close to driveway, parking, within 15 feet of a fire hydrant. I don't know if, a lot of them probably are fine, but if there is any recommendation of, I don't know how many of those you get with the parking in the driveway.
Okay. The parking violations?
Yeah.
Yeah, we get a substantial amount of parking violations, throughout the city. Crosswalk.
Yeah.
Too close to driveways and stuff, yes.
I mean,
We feel the
if
fair amount.
there's only like 2 on that page, but that I think would be worth maybe looking at raising the fee, just from a flat $20 to maybe 25, or just to consider it. I don't know,
Well,
because I think the motion is just.
are you amending this motion?
I'm just asking if, because otherwise, I think the motion reads just page 35. Which if these are set by ordinance, is it the planning commission? Or,
No, schedule sets this, each budget session we set, just like we're doing right now.
if they're tied to an ordinance?
Well, they're tied to, the traffic parking
Yeah.
ordinance.
Okay,
The code says that they're set by the city commission.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
so then it refers to a fee schedule, which is basically what the parking violations are, kind of similar to a fee schedule for.
Okay, okay.
I would accept looking at page 33, because I don't think these fees have gone up for a while, and everything else has gone up. The cost of enforcement has gone up.
Yes.
Cost of enforcement has gone up quite a lot because of our salary and particularly our retirement and other benefits. And that's how we pay for some of this. So I'm not opposed to adding an examination, and we're not telling you how much.
Yep.
Take your best shot. But we're asking that these be reviewed and rather than just passed on from last year.
It has been a long time since the winter parking has been adjusted as well. I mean,
And I'll guarantee any other city you get a parking ticket, it's not $20.
yeah, you're right. I think you're right. Of course, I never violate that law, so
You never get caught.
I wouldn't know. Yeah.
Tom?
One of the things to keep in mind, however, is that we've raised fees, and the budget recommends fees, but they're also predicated on paying the cost of that program.
Correct.
We initially got started in this discussion that would a fine, an increased fine, deter further action such as loud noise? And the comment now on page 33 is, I don't know what the cost of writing a ticket for parking is, okay? And maybe you should probably look at that, and I think the point was made that we probably haven't looked at that in a number of years. And if it's true, then we probably should have it reflect what the true cost is of doing that, so. Do you have to have that done by the 13th? I mean, the
No,
motivation
we
here
don't.
is not to generate revenue like the stormwater or something of that nature. This is more of, the one on the noise, for example, to use that was more of a deterrent.
Correct.
And then this one comes up on the point that we haven't done it in a while, so.
No, the only thing I was suggesting was that, we could get it, if we don't get it done by the 12th, by that meeting, we'll just have to bring it to another commission meeting for approval and an adjustment or amendment to the current budget. That's all. If you wanted to stay in time with the budget process, we would have to have it back to you by the 12th. It's actually probably easier for us to take a little bit longer. I was just trying to save a little time for the commission. That's all.
My motion didn't set a deadline for that, and realizing that we're not spending more money, which causes a problem for Gary tomorrow morning, trying to figure out where it's gonna come from. We're
Yeah.
actually gonna give him a buck or two more.
Yeah, but if you have to make him rewrite this page, that could put him over the edge.
That's, if in the day of the abacus, that would be a problem, but he's got a spreadsheet.
Yeah. Well, it's all relative. He'd probably do better with an abacus.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. City Clerk, could you repeat that motion, please?
I can try. The motion as it stands right now is to direct the chief of police and the city manager to come up with a schedule of fines for second and third offenses for those items listed on pages 33 and 35 of the budget.
Okay,
Thank
more
you.
Can I
discussion?
correct it? Since there are no second offenses on page 33, it's actually, it does include all those on 33. That was by friendly amendment. And then on page 35, it was for second and third offenses, Kyle.
Do you want that back, or do you trust me?
Trust you.
Okay.
No, it was Commissioner Cambenzi asked the one who made the motion be accepted as a friendly, and then I think Pro Tem Reynolds was the second. And then, I'm sorry, I'm not speaking. I made the motion. I accepted Commissioner Cambenzi's friendly amendment as part of that motion and restated it. And then, as I recall, then it would be up to Pro Tem to accept it as the second of that.
Second.
And then,
Okay, so
back to you.
So we just have the motion to vote on. Okay, are we ready to vote? Okay, you've heard the motion. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed? Carries 7-0. Moving on.
I guess moving to page 74, which is the fact sheet. If you look at, I'm not going to go through each line item, but there are a couple items up in the revenue applicable to this account section that I would like to just touch base on. First is a federal grant this year for $22,000. What I'm looking to do is later on I'll be requesting $22,000 to cover the costs of bulletproof vests that we need to purchase this year. We have a 5-year lifespan on bulletproof vests, and we're due to replace our department vests. Part of this is funded up to 50% from a federal grant, which we have applied for, and we do plan on receiving up to 50% reimbursement for this fee. The second would be a federal grant or a state grant we have for the snowmobile patrol for $2,500. We receive this every year, and this grant money is used to pay for overtime for officers and equipment to patrol the section of state snowmobile trail that travels through the city of Marquette, basically from the Rock Cut up towards Morgan Falls. And we also partner with other agencies, Chocolate Township and the Sheriff's Department, in patrolling that segment of the trailway. One thing I would like to bring to your attention is the next item, which would be the 544 upset. As you can see, this year we received $18,000 reimbursement through the Burn J grant, and this covers the cost of our officer who is assigned to upset, our detective. And that's continually is decreasing every year. I anticipate it decreasing next year also, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention. On a side note, that is a very important role and a very important part of our consistent and continuous effort to deal with some of the drug issues we have in our community. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I also wanted to touch base on some of the revenues that we've received through the public schools. About $15,000 has been earmarked from public schools to help fund overtime and fund our youth services officer position, along with $10,000 from the Kauffman Foundation, which will also be directed towards keeping an officer not only in the schools but also at school events, such as football games, basketball games, hockey games. So those are two items there. As far as the third section, the authorized positions, as you can kind of see through there, we are expecting, we are having an officer leave. September 11th will be his last day, so we will have a vacancy for a period of time. I talked with Gary and the city manager about that position, and through the process of requesting to fill that position, there will be a time period where we will not have that position filled. The negative part of that is sometimes due to staffing levels, we may have to post overtime to deal with the minimum staffing requirements that we have per the contract with the union. So overall, there will be some savings there. It's hard to determine exactly how much will be, but we look to fill that position probably after the beginning of the budget year. We also, and I believe it was touched a little bit by Mana, we currently, one of our parking enforcement officer is dealing with some health issues, so we're waiting to hear back from that position regarding whether or not she's going to be able to return to work. So we're waiting on that. We had a temporary parking enforcement officer work, but we've utilized the number of hours that we were allotted to use him. And so right now he's on standby until we can kind of determine where we're going to go with that position. So there are some savings in there also. Any questions?
A question about your detective sergeant assigned to the FBI Cybercrime Task Force. Is that officer assigned full-time to the cybercrime?
He is not assigned full-time. He splits duties between the FBI and our office, but he's a real vital link, and he also provides some specialized services to other agencies throughout Marquette County as far as technology analysis and stuff. But he splits his duties between the FBI and our office.
And when we help out other municipalities with that, do they reimburse us for our costs for that?
They're, not per se money-wise. We work together with other agencies, just like the Sheriff's Department works with us for dive exercises. We don't have a boat capabilities, so we work with other agencies, and that's kind of the special thing about Marquette County is, we all try to help each other out. They do contribute, other agencies do contribute to our canine fund, so we do, when we send our canine out, that has been partially funded through donations from other municipalities, but we don't send them a bill for some of our services.
And so I just, my own bias is that we're providing services that are paid for by the city taxpayers for other communities who really don't fund that for themselves.
Well, I don't, if you're talking about the FBI position, a lot of the stuff that's brought to the FBI is through a federal jurisdictional thing, so it's not like we're sending him out to other agencies to do their work for them. That stuff has been brought to the FBI, being a specialty that he has. He works part of that cybercrime task force, and that partnership we have with the FBI is to help outlying jurisdictions. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily taking our taxpayers' money and sending them into patrolling Ishpeming. Although we did have a recent situation where officers from our department were able to apprehend armed robberies suspects in Chocolate Township because of our staff.
That was funny. That was worth it.
Right. that was. So that just goes to show you, there wasn't staffing levels at other jurisdictions, and without us, we wouldn't have probably been able to get those guys, so.
Can I'm only a few months out of that job, so I just want to add one thing that and Blake alluded to it, that this is an assignment with the FBI, and because the FBI is a national organization, they have to, and there's only one office in the UP, and that's in Marquette. They have to offer their services to any law enforcement agency that requests it. So we kind of work in conjunction with them. The trade-off is, and will continue to be, the FBI then in quid pro quo ways and others reimburses us by special training for this officer that we would not normally be able to afford, cyber technology, and I believe they give us a vehicle.
Correct.
Too.
Yes.
Free of charge that we use. So we do have some payback, but it's not in a cash flow.
Thank you.
Commissioner Plord?
Just a question along those lines. Would that FBI officer, would that be better described as a FBI liaison officer?
Yes.
Because it's.
I'm just gonna have him come over here.
No,
I'll let
I
him
think-
do the budget.
I think that's the case. It sounds to me
Right.
that that's the case. And really, it gives you someone to send to the FBI and come back to you guys and, talk about what's going on. And like you say, it's a little more complicated than that, but it's really, I think, more for the benefit of our police department than it is for the benefit of the FBI.
Correct.
Commissioner Baldini?
Thank you, Your Honor. We have agreements, not for you to answer, with the fire department between the different units. I mean, I know when I used to do grants that was one of the things you had to agree to, that if you got in trouble and somebody else needed you, would respond. Now, I don't know if you have written agreements between departments, but I'm quite certain you're all prepared to assist one another.
All of our officers are deputized, so that kind of covers that mutual agreement aid situations like we had the other day. So, and we all have a good working relationship with the other administrators throughout the law enforcement community, so.
Yeah, the fire departments have formal arrangements. When law enforcement, it's more of we kind of help each other out, and often you'll see us when we're short or we're busy at the campus. Police will help us on calls. Sheriff's Department might help if we're busy, and we kind of just quid pro quo. We just kind of help when we can. So, yeah, but nothing formal with the police department.
Commissioner Cambenzi?
I have a question. How much funding are we falling short with the youth services officer about?
As far as, well, if you look.
Covering that overtime?
Yeah, if you look at page 74, and the standard salary for a patrolman, because that's what that position is classified as. That would be the difference of probably about $25,000 we're receiving from outside sources to help fund that versus the overall position itself. We did have a position in the past that was a fully funded youth services officer, but actually the current position we have right now is actually a part of the road patrol, and he does specialized duties outside of his road patrol duties. So he is technically manpower in certain situations. So.
Okay, so it's, in school, it's 180 days a year, I guess, but I know at one time it was, like you said, fully funded, and
Yes.
I just want to reiterate how important that's been, having that officer in the schools. And Officer Marker does a great job, but he's everywhere, and he's done a great job establishing that relationship with kids. And you hear other districts talk about it. They don't have it, so I'd like to see it keep going, and certainly if there's any other way to get more money towards it.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's a vital part of the services we provide, especially in the uncertainties that we face in today's day and age, with a lot of very violent situations occurring in our schools. It is very fortunate that we can have him in there, and it is an important part of our department relationship with the schools.
Commissioner Frazier?
think I remember back in the day when I was in high school, I used to see Mike Angley walking around talking to the principal and stuff like that. So I remember.
And he had brown hair?
I think he might have had brown hair back then. I can't remember. I mean, it's kind of I kind of vaguely remember him
Nobody
walking
can,
around the parking lot once in a while, checking out stuff. But you never know. Maybe he was just trying to be a goofball. Who knows? But he was around back then. So that might have been part of the youth enforcement stuff. I don't know. But I mean, you guys do a great job, and don't feel bad about moving your kids into college. My parents never helped me move. I used to have to take the Suburban and just move myself. So don't feel bad about helping your kids move. And I mean, the only thing I ask is that in our welcoming party we had for one of the boats, they asked, how does the city work? And I said, well, we don't have a police boat. You know, we have, I saw a boat coming into the harbor, and I said, that's the boat that helps out the police department with the mooring field and stuff like that. So he goes to the police boat? No. But the Coast Guard and the sheriff and everybody else does, and they all take care of it. Our police just kind of has eyes and everything and help out. So I said, next time I see him, I'll ask him just to kind of keep an eye on your boats, because I know my wife read something about online that one of the tall ships had a problem in Duluth that somebody stealing a wheel off the boat and bringing it to a bar in the park area and leaving it behind a dumpster. I said, our park doesn't get that much. Not many people go down there once in a while, but I just think if you guys are out driving about, just take a drive by there once in a while and just keep an eye on things. If you see somebody walking off the boat with the wheel, I mean, you would think that somebody, I said, I can't believe somebody in Duluth, whether it be they had people working, volunteers, I can't believe somebody didn't recognize somebody walking off the boat with a wheel in their hand. You know, you would think somebody would have stopped them, but, you know, just kind of, you don't have to walk down to the boat. I think just to, I saw when you guys parked the other day, not a bad, just to drive by and just keep an eye on things. I'll talk to the police officer and let them know that you guys keep an eye on you guys, just to help you guys out.
Yep, we're aware of the ships coming down. We'll definitely keep an eye on them.
Okay, Blake, moving on.
Okay.
Commissioner Connolly has a question.
Comment on the police presence in the schools, how important that is as we worry about the security of our children more and more as we see the news day in and day out. And law enforcement in schools, it's important. But the other thing is, my kids are in their 30s, and they still have fond memories of Officer St. John. So the Marquette Police Department made an early positive first impression on good kids. So that's worth a lot, too. So I just wanted to bring that out, that they still remember the officer fondly. And it wasn't just Greg. It was people who succeeded him, too.
Thank you.
Commissioner Baldini?
I think I was there when the program first got inaugurated, and it's been a very positive, I think it established a relationship between students, police officers. It helped us, without getting into a lot of specifics, to deal with cases and individual situations that would come up. And it's a very, very beneficial program. As a matter of fact, I wrote down someplace as one of the things to talk to our lobbyists to see if there's any money someplace on the federal level and the state level to at least whatever, 5,000, 10,000, every little bit helps. But it was a significant program, and it helped us without having to go through a whole long legal process. It really was very beneficial. Yeah.
Commissioner Frazier?
Maybe, Blake, you could give us those vests to wear after, because we have some crazy people come to our meetings once in a while. And I know you're here to protect us and look over stuff, but you never know. Maybe we could borrow those vests when you're done, when they expire, just for added protection, you know?
Trust me, you're not going to want to. They've been in, guys have been in there for 5 years. They're due to be.
They're probably
There's
worn
a
out.
reason they're expired.
Right.
But I just want to say about remembering people. I remember when my friends get in trouble a lot, so he probably has very fond memories of Mike back in the day when I was in school. So I don't remember too many people saying great things about Mike when Mike used to be the enforcement officer.
Okay, Blake, what do you got?
All right. On page 75, that kind of goes over the things that we just kind of talked about regarding the funding from the schools and the Kaufman, along with our cybercrime task force teaming. I also touched base on upset a little bit. So I'm moving on to page 76. That kind of goes over our expenditures. The only changes that I would like to point out to you, and you see those on the bottom as notes in my 740 fund. I'm asking for or requesting an increase in that fund. First, for the ballistic vests, $22,000 to pay for those vests up front. We anticipate finding out what we're going to get grant-wise as far as funding here within the next probably month or month and a half. So I can't tell you exactly what we're going to be reimbursed, but that's my initial quote from the company that we deal with here out of Michigan for our vests. Also, I'm asking or requesting a $25,000 increase in that budget to upgrade our patrol cars with mobile dispatch terminals or tablets. Our adjoining agencies currently have those, Chocolate Township, Forsyth Township, the Sheriff's Department, and the State Police. And what these tablets allow us to do is, if most of you are familiar, we recently upgraded our records management system, which is basically the database that we use to store all the information regarding reports. And in that transition to the new records management system, the other agencies in Marquette County came on board. So we're all using the same records management system. And what these tablets do is allow the officers on the road to access the information, much like you have in front of you with your laptops, accessing information instead of having calling the station to get that information or stopping at the station to get that information. So basically what we're trying to transition to is making the patrol car more of a workstation and allowing officers to type reports, accident reports, other reports vehicle-wise versus spending time in the office doing that. So we currently have 8 operational frontline patrol cars. I spoke with Gary. We kind of decreased the amount. I'm requesting 5 tablets to get them installed and the hardware and the equipment. And this is information I received as a quote and also from the other agencies that are currently using them. It's about $5,000 per vehicle to equip them. So we're looking to equip half of our frontline vehicles with tablets, and that was the increase that I had requested there. So, and those are the only 2 points I was bringing to your attention regarding those.
Commissioner Conley?
From my ride-along, it seemed like during a traffic stop, the officer had to call in the plate number, get any kind of warrants, arrest warnings, anything like that before he even got out of the car. Is there technology available, and are we seeking it to scan the plate rather than to call the dispatch and then tapping into the state database?
Yeah.
Can we do that right in car?
Yeah, this is the beginning steps to that. So basically, when you conduct a traffic stop or you go on a call, usually the contact you have with those individuals, you'll run them through LEAN, which is the Law Enforcement Information Network. Currently, we're doing that via radio.
Right.
What this does is this allows the officers to swipe the driver's license or type the information in manually and then get that information back without having to use the radio. It also allows them to access our records management system from our department to check on different situations that they may encounter with individuals they have contact with out on the street.
At some point, does it get to scanning the plate?
Yes, there are different capabilities. They also allow you to print out tickets. And I mean, there's a lot of technology available out there. We're just looking at trying to get the basic stuff right now, and at some point we can look to expand that.
I'll bet the old chief is glad that the new chief is doing this stuff.
He's been very supportive.
The old chief wouldn't do it. That was the problem.
Right.
The technology's been there for a while.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't most of you. If you go to any of the agencies down in the Lower Peninsula, I mean, this is not new technology. I mean, this is technology that's been out there for quite some time, and having all the agencies in Marquette County go to this records management system has really, I mean, before we had to call the Sheriff's Department to get information, whereas now we can access their reports, they can access our reports, we can access photos. I mean, there's just a wide array of stuff that we can do now where we weren't able to do that a while back. And as you are all aware, technology continuously evolves. We're just looking to get into that game a little bit with that, so.
Commissioner Plard?
Thank you, Your Honor. Chief, would this be better to just do all the 8 cars instead of 5?
Well, what I'm looking at right now is as we cycle cars out, it's hard for me to go in and waste money by installing equipment into a car that I'm going to be taking out of service next year. So,
Okay.
due to our motor pool schedule of replacement of vehicles, our cars are reaching. There's a couple cars right now that are reaching close to 150,000 miles. They will be taken out of service this next fiscal year, and 2 cars added, hopefully. Where we would be able to just implement this technology in a newer car. So ideally, I would like to say yes, but I think responsibly, I think it's something that I would like to maybe look at implementing over a
It's something
period of
that would
time.
actually work for the department to do it that way.
Yes, yeah.
Commissioner Frazier?
I think it's a great idea, Blake. Instead of having to call if you pull somebody over in Marquette for something, it's having to call. It's like, you check the record on so-and-so. Say Tom was cruising through town in his Cadillac, 100 miles an hour, and you found out that he was a bad person, and you found this, he was doing this all the time in Nagani, Ishpeming, Chalkley, all the states, other parts of the state. You could find that out right away, instead of having to wait for somebody to call you back and sit there forever waiting. So I think it's a great idea, Blake. Whatever you guys can make your job easier, I think it's a great idea.
The main goal is just to keep guys out of the office and get them out on the road where they can make an impact. So.
Is this Wi-Fi or is this?
It's all through Verizon. There's a modem actually in these tablets now. The city does have a working relationship with Verizon for other parts. This is something I've discussed with Dan Frederickson, our IT specialist. He's on board also. So it's just getting this off the ground on the initial stages. So.
Okay, good.
I think we can move to page 133, correct? Yes. And that's the drug forfeiture fund. And this is Gary's. Gary doesn't like this fund. The drug forfeiture fund is basically a fund where if we, is everybody kind of familiar with forfeiture? In certain situations, we don't do it real aggressively, but in certain situations where we arrest individuals for drug-related crimes, and we feel that those crimes are used to distribute drugs or stuff, we have the ability to forfeit some of the items involved in those, whether it be cash, whether it be vehicles, whether it be cell phones and stuff. So that money is put into this fund. And what this fund originally was set up for and continues to be is to try to put back into combating drug activity. So this was a big contributor to our K-9 program, getting that up and running and the success of that. We've had a couple huge forfeits related to K-9 activity. So a lot of that money has been utilized to continue the program that we have. So right now, our estimated, last time I talked was about a little under $10,000, and we do have 3 pending forfeitures right now, $551 in cash. We have 1 firearm, 3 cell phones, and then a 2010 Dodge Charger. And I'm sure Commissioner Reynolds, realizes there's a process. It's not something that we can just forfeit. There's a process that we have to go through with the prosecutor's office, with attorneys, to make sure that it's got to be approved through that process before it can be forfeited. And there are opportunities throughout that process for individuals to regain that property should it be warranted. So that kind of sums up that forfeiture fund.
Why are you asking 2,000? Is that just lowballing it?
I don't believe I'm asking. I think that's just a standard I guess where am I?
On page 134.
Oh,
That's a revenue estimate.
yeah.
We try to make an estimate every year.
We try to estimate what we're gonna take in forfeitures. It's really hard to make that guess because it all depends on your interaction or arrests regarding those type of situations that qualify for forfeiture. So that's kind of a rough guesstimate based on years past.
You seem to exceed it.
Sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't.
Okay.
It all depends
Well,
on
okay.
the
Better to get more than.
That's why
You-
Gary doesn't like it.
Hey,
Spend
well.
more than they take in.
No, you take in more than you spend.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. It's. I mean, yeah, it's something that we definitely keep an eye on, and most of that money we want to reinvest back into the program that obviously
Sure.
feeds it. So.
Good, thank you.
The next item would be our MCOL's Criminal Justice Training Fund. And those not familiar, the state of Michigan, based on the number of law enforcement hours worked, assesses each department throughout the state of Michigan. And then what they do is they administer monies to those agencies based on the number of hours worked and the number of officers and the population size to train their officers. So discussing that with Gary this year, we averaged about $6,500 for this year. So that's what we're asking for next year, and then or that's what we will receive from the state this year, and then we match that fund due to our numbers of personnel, and all that money is used and reinvested into the officers as far as training. We have yearly trainings that were mandated regarding firearms training, CPR, first aid, bloodborne pathogens, precision driving, all training that's pertinent to our profession. So this money is strictly used for training opportunities. So.
Commissioner Plord?
Coming from a law enforcement training background, Chief, I would be inclined to give you a lot more money than that because I understand what you're talking about and I understand what MCOLS is about. So I think you're being very, very conservative about that, and I appreciate that in that sense. What people may not realize, too, is there's training for the vest that you're going to get. There's training for virtually everything that you do, fingerprinting and everything. Even though you may not do a lot of fingerprinting, you're still training for everything you do. So that's a very conservative number. I also want to mention, too, that the drug forfeiture number for a city this size, I think, is also very conservative. And I don't know if we're just there's not so many drug cases, or we're just not pushing to take some things that other cities are taking. But either way, I think you're doing a great job with it.
Yeah, just a little bit on the drug forfeiture. I think in certain situations it may have, in larger areas, it may have been utilized overzealously in certain situations. And
No question
so,
about that.
Yeah,
And
so
there's
what
issues with that, too.
Right. So what we're trying to do is just make sure we're pinpointing what we kind of want to do. We have a working relationship with the prosecutor's office, and they kind of agree on what charges in situations that this would apply. So.
It's contaminated. Can't take it.
Yeah. So.
Commissioner Gambenzi?
Just a quick question. I know this has come up more and more, but can you comment on whether or not this fund actually helps with training for any like mental health? You know, I mean, you guys are running into this more and more, I guess, with the well-being checks, but can you just make a comment about maybe how that has changed within the police force over the years?
Oh, absolutely.
And how it's affecting.
Yeah. So with the help of the former chief, we've tried to establish a group of personnel within our department that are trainers in a lot of these specific tasks, whether it be firearms, CPR, defensive tactics, and we've also had the opportunity to work with Pathways to establish a CIP, not a CIP, but a CIT training for mental health. And this is like kind of grassroots work through grants and Pathways. And we've established where several of our officers are now teaching mental health training in the academy. They're teaching mental health training to other agencies. Lieutenant Laurela and Corporal Rob Hansen are instrumental in spread. Captain Laurela, sorry. It's all coming together here. But they're pioneering that training, which in my opinion, will only carry over and will be probably mandated at some point, because the number of individuals that we're dealing with mental health is skyrocketing. We're dealing with it on a daily basis. So that's an important part of training that I think is now being mandated in academies, and will probably be served on a yearly or bi-yearly basis. So.
Then just one last quick question. Can you just comment on, I guess, the financial effect on coming across more meth labs and what that's done to our budget?
Well, it's done a lot to our budget. Traditionally, and without going too long on it, our current upset officer is a trained meth lab. He's trained in dismantling and taking down and storing and destroying of meth labs, and that's a specialized training. If you remember, not too long ago when Mike was serving as the chief, the city manager, we had to wait for a specialized company to come up from downstate to do it, and it was just an astronomical amount of money to do that. There are state grants for meth lab cleanup, but those have been exhausted within the first 3 months that they were distributed. So having an upset officer allows us access to having somebody to be able to come into our jurisdiction and other jurisdictions to take care of meth labs. But it's a huge financial drain, because when they're calling out these individuals to deal with meth labs, they're taking them away from actually doing what they're kind of assigned to do, which is, finding, drug activity and conducting the appropriate investigation. So I don't see it getting any better. I only see it getting worse as we go along with this until we can get some more funding.
Yeah, and this is where I'd love to see what it's costing each police department at the city, county, state level, only because we're afraid to go after these pharmaceutical companies. We can't go after them. We can't make this a prescription only, like some of the other states, Oregon.
Yes.
And to me, I'm looking at it going, well, what's it costing us in our police force? And and like you said, it's not getting better. It's just going up. So
the meth issue, and I'm sure you've probably seen it out in the communities and have heard about it, but you can't go on the TV6 website without, seeing at least weekly people being sentenced for meth violations or meth labs being located. It's a huge issue for this community, and this, not just Marquette, but Marquette County and the Upper Peninsula, for that matter.
Commissioner Frazier.
Dancing in your budget for your four-legged officers, which my daughter loves your four-legged officers, and I know they do a great job, and you've told me before they're treated like kings, and you guys treat them great. And I was thinking maybe you could put something in the budget for treat allowance for them or something like that. Maybe you could borrow some money from a former police chief and take some money from him. Maybe he could give you a budget for that.
Yeah. We do have a couple little line items where we do for drug dog supplies, and then we've also received some donations on a yearly basis, and that money is used to cover the costs of those dogs. But as with any animal, there's only a certain time period that they're going to be effective. So what we're trying to do with that drug forfeiture is make sure that when that time comes, we have money available to reinvest into that program, because it's a huge success, not only in our community, but our current Lieutenant Marty Munger is a master trainer in the state of Michigan. I mean, he's known throughout the country as a master trainer through the NHACP. So that's a huge achievement on his part, and he was asked by agencies in the Lower Peninsula to take on that responsibility, and he's done a great job.
I know I talked to one of your two-legged officers that had the four-legged officers and said you helped get the program going, and you helped train all that stuff, and you're helping get us. I thank you for all that, and the sort of four-legged officers help. Thank you too.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Blake. You got more?
Nope. That
Commissioners,
covers my presentation. So.
Blake, thank you very much. Appreciate the work.
Thank you all for your time.
You bet.
And I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but normally we do the police on the first night instead. Nah, hopefully he knows I'm kidding. Truly, Blake gets a gold star for his effort he put into the budget, and I really appreciate the effort he did put into it. So, with that, we are now completed with the presentations that we have. We've gone through the budget, eventually pretty much every page in there. Before the meeting started, I handed out follow-up information. These are notes that were taken during the previous sessions in our attempt to answer them. So if you look at it and if you think you asked a question that isn't addressed here, please let me know and we'll get an answer back to you just as soon as we can. Other than that, I think we're ready to hand the budget over to you for your discussion unless Mike has anything to say. So yeah, we're handing it to you now. Ball's in your court.
So
Oh,
we are,
and excuse me, I just again ask that we do schedule a public hearing before we leave for September 12th for the budget.
budget wrap-up, are we set on that? I mean, we're done discussing the budget. We're gonna move to the hearing then? We'll, okay. Yeah. Okay, I think if I could ask the city attorney, do we need a motion to set the public hearing? Yes. Okay, would there be a motion? Mayor Pro Tem Reynolds?
I move that we schedule a public hearing regarding the 2017 budget for September 12th, 2016.
Is there a second? Commissioner Baldini, thank you. Discussion, Commissioner Cambenzi?
What are we doing with item 5, budget wrap-up?
7.
Sorry, this follow-up info, is that what this was meant for? I'd like to go over this. I mean, I think there's 10 items in here that we wanted more information on. Am I wrong on this?
No, you're correct. You still schedule a public hearing first.
Let's, why don't we finish scheduling the public hearing, then we'll come back to this. Okay, we're gonna do that. So we have a motion on the floor, it's been seconded. Do we have any discussion on the motion? No discussion on the motion. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed? That carries 7-0. Now we're, what? Okay, now we're gonna go back to the budget wrap-up, the follow-up information. We have 10 items on this list. Commissioner Cambenzi, you had discussion on it?
Usually we just go through each one and get a feel for if we want to include it or not, right? I mean, I think these were things that had enough.
Yeah, these were items that had come up during previous hearings, and this is the point where if you have something particular you want us to adjust to the budget, either up or down, we will do that. If there's something you think you need to add, we can talk about adding it. If there's something you think needs to be removed, we can talk about removing it. Fee schedule, that kind of thing too. So.
Commissioner Baldini.
Thank you for this, because these were the questions we raised, I think, weren't they, Gary? Yeah, because, I mean, the budget has a number of things, and I think the message I'm gonna hope we get out to the community is that, long-term, I mean, last week the governor was here to announce a new power plant in effect saying Presque Isle will close, which means that's gonna negatively impact our bottom line. And you have already indicated, City Manager, that you're putting together an internal group to begin reviewing where we're gonna go in the long term. I mean, this year we're taking $413,000 out of the fund balance to balance the budget just on paper.
gonna be about 700, 723, if I added that truck back in.
If you put in the bottom, yeah, your trucks, okay. Never get away from those trucks, but anyway.
Still want a helicopter.
And there's not, and I mean, also Gary has put into his introductory comments that we really have an inelastic tax base in the community. That's gonna be a challenge to us. The power plant will go, when and how much, and you're already probably looking at that. Salaries are only 1% higher, but the fringe benefits are significantly higher. And I think the community should hear that from us also. And that, I think Commissioner Conley has alluded to that on several occasions, the retirement, the health insurance and things of that nature. And I'm not suggesting we abolish them or anything, but they are gonna be cost. And this budget also reflects an increase in the stormwater, the water and sewer bill, so it's gonna be an additional $109 a year approximately for the average person in the community. I think you've done a good job on the budget, put it together. It's a tight budget, but I also think we have to begin thinking about how are we going to do all the things that this community would like us to do, what makes Marquette Marquette. And so I'm glad that you're going to put together that sort of a group. We may also want to think about putting together an outside group at some point to assist or do something with that, but let's see where you go with that. Because it's a budget, it's going to take care of some issues. The one issue that I'm still not, and I'm not uncomfortable with it, I just would like, I think, a description, is we have several places in the budget where we're talking about bond funds. And I suppose I would almost like to see a picture of where we're going to put that money from the additional bonds if we sell it in different areas. And no big deal, because I think I want to be supportive of that. But it is going to raise our indebtedness that we have to pay off. There's no free money out there. So, but thank you, Your Honor.
Maybe if I could at least quickly address that. If you look at and I forget the page number, but the capital improvement page, page 13, I believe, we did try to show the breakout by fund, and I'm not sure if I'm addressing the
I
question
remember that
appropriately.
discussion, yeah. And we added the 350,000 on that?
Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
for the,
And
Nordic.
and that's where the money will come from to pay for those bonds. So anything in particularly the major and local street funds, you can pretty much assume that's gonna be a general fund contribution. But anything that comes out of the utility funds, that'll be part of, if we have to adjust rates in the future, that'll be part of why we have to do that as well, So I'm not sure if that addressed your question appropriately or not.
And I guess just to make sure we understand your question, I understood it, and I could be wrong, that because we're taking on more bond debt, how does the additional payments reflect or compare to current payments and our current payments dropping off? Because we usually have an unscientific system of when we take on additional bond payments, we make sure that we're retiring some bonds at the same time and try to stay in a balance.
But I think this year we're taking on more than we're retiring.
Well, I'm not sure about that.
Well, for FY17, that pretty much was the rule of thumb we've been using for the past several years. I don't remember how far it goes back, but the rule we were using was whatever we paid off in principal each year, that would allow us to do that much in a new bond issue. So say we paid off $4 million in principal, then we would take on $4 million in new debt. And that way it's not reducing the debt, but it's containing the debt. And what we did the past couple of years, we even went below that. So I think 2 years ago we did a $2 million bond issue, and I think the current one is probably going to be close to $3 million. And by doing that, really all we're doing is shifting problems down the road. And that's why for FY17, it's projected to be, and again, we still don't have to do all those projects. They will come before you again, and you can, say no at that time. But really what FY17 is doing is addressing those projects that were not done in the previous 2 years, and we're just now taking care of those. So that's why we're projecting for 17 to be a bigger bond issue. But in looking at the CIP, the 6-year CIP, we're looking at some pretty substantial bond issues. And that's something that we don't want to go down that road. We've done a really good job at containing the debt, and we definitely don't want to see it get out of hand. And that's why during this next fiscal year, we're going to be putting an internal committee together to really take a serious look at everything the city does budget-wise and try to get a handle on, what projects do we have to do and when, and also to try to come up with new revenue sources. We don't want to keep, going to the same well every time, because it's our citizens that would have to pay tax increases. It's our citizens that have to pay utility rate increases. And you can only go to the well so many times, and we need to start looking at other potential revenue sources. And I think this is where the lobbyists could help us, because at least some of the ideas that I have would require, a statewide change, and it's not something that we can do on our own by any means. But so that's kind of where we're going. But for now, the projected bond issue is really to take care of issues that were just passed down from previous years just because we couldn't fund them at the time.
Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you, Gary, but that's, I suppose, I'm supportive of this budget. I'm going to vote for it. But my concern is that we are going to do some bond indebtedness, and we're already admitting to ourselves that we're going to have some challenges. I don't think the state's going to bail us out, okay? I think we're going to have to look at how we're going to redo revenue in the city, and that may require us as a commission and you as a manager to really be much more inclusive of including people somehow in this process to begin this dialogue. We're going to go through this transition, and we're going to lose the power plant. We're going to expand our plant. What other options do we have? Can we sell them? Are the people going to buy them? And if they don't, what are the consequences? And so we're going to take care of these projects this year. Once we adopt the budget, which we're doing, we're going to spend the money probably, and because we've had a city that wants to take care of problems and keep it going, and that's what we're doing. And but we can face some potential revenue shortages by going into some more in debts, and that's all I'm sort of suggesting. I will vote for the budget, but I'm also wanting us, and I think that's predicated on your suggesting that you're going to put together a really in-depth group to start looking, and it's not meaning cutting out pencils and paper to balance this budget. It's going to require some other novel, maybe printing money, but So, thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, back, Sarah.
I guess after tonight's session, looking at the cost of adding that truck back in, but then also hearing Sherry Davy say that they're still talking to the Nordic Bay. We haven't seen an agreement yet, but if we can reduce the bond debt.
Can I ask a question on that one? Yes, go ahead. Sarah, what I didn't understand, and I should have asked Sherry, okay? Maybe Gary can answer. As I understood, the Nordic Bay, our $350,000 is really not a brownfield.
It's our own.
It's our
own idea.
Water sewer. Am I correct, or am I
Well,
narrow on
it
that?
would be an internal brownfield. It'd be something that we would fund. We would build the infrastructure they need to make the project work, sewer and water, which is inadequate. And then we would reimburse that bond with the taxes that would be raised by the new construction. And I mean, I don't mean to suggest that Sherry was saying anything wrong, but it's completely my understanding that the Brownfield told them that because there was no direct public benefit component, in other words, what they were building didn't have a public park or didn't have a kiddie pool or something, it didn't meet their criteria for a brownfield, and it was always my understanding, and Gary, you can tell me if I'm wrong, that it was rejected by the brownfield. And you know, it's one of these properties, and that from my perspective is been blighted. It's been torn down. Yes, it does have a developer ownership now, and probably in a more positive direction, but from my perspective, it's one of these properties that without some encouragement from us, wouldn't be moving in this direction. I think we can be comfortable that this is the only request they're gonna ask of us, that we help them with this infrastructure problem. Will it occur if we don't do this? I don't know. It could happen, but I would say that if we're going to take a risk on any developer, it would be this one that's already contributing quite a bit to the developing in the city. So I do support it, but I understand your point.
Well, if we're gonna bond X amount extra, I mean, I would see this as city, not the city's problem, I guess, to take on. Or I would like to see it paid back in terms of all the accrued interest, like it was a bond payment.
Well, the idea behind this one was, and this is why we kind of all found it intriguing, was when a project goes into the brownfield, whatever that property value is at the time, that's the baseline. So the general fund receives any money from the baseline, and that's all the city will receive for the next 25, 30 years. And then the brownfield collects the increase on that to pay for the development costs for it. In this case, the city would do the improvement, and there's no baseline set, so the city would immediately, the general fund would immediately be capturing, you know, through taxes, the value added to that, and at least the numbers we've been looking at, it would more than offset the debt service costs for that. So that's one reason we found it intriguing. It's not to say that we want to do this for every little project that the brownfield turns down, but this is one of those when, you know, looking at increasing the city's tax base, this was a very good example to do that.
Can we, I mean, I feel like we haven't seen those numbers. I mean, how much is it gonna increase?
Yeah, and I'm not prepared to answer that at this time. Like I said, it was just in the very early stages, and it was actually Dennis's idea, and when he brought it to my attention, I was like, heck yeah, this is what we want to do. I mean, because we desperately need to be working on increasing our tax base, and that's exactly what the kind of project we would want to do. But as far as any of the details, I can't answer any of that at this time.
I think to vote on it for our budget session, I mean, I want all of that information, and I think we should have a policy, because as soon as this gets out there, if it's approved, we have nothing to say why, what parameters, and why we would choose this one and no other development group. And I mean, this is coming quick, and all we have is a $350,000 number, so.
Yeah, and I just want to say too, this is just to put it in the CIP plan. The project itself would come before the city commission at a later time, and you could give a, you know, thumbs up or thumbs down at that time. But this action just gets it in the CIP so that we can bring it to you later down the road when it's ready.
But, okay, help me understand this. We're gonna bond for things like a snow plow truck?
No, we will not bond for any motor pool vehicles.
Or, well, we're bonding for roads, equipment, we're taking other stuff out of the general fund. So this 350,000 would be a loan from our general fund?
No, that's really going to be out of the water and sewer funds, as I understand it. That's mostly infrastructure type stuff. I don't think the general fund would be involved in that part. That would be in the water and sewer, is my understanding.
So we're gonna raise rates on city taxpayers for water and sewer 10%, and we are going to give a loan to a private development company.
Well, it's to improve the infrastructure so that the development could take place. It's, because that was one of my questions too, because you can't really do a bond for a private activity. But in this case, at least from what I was seeing, it looked like the infrastructure improvements would be for public purpose. It would not only benefit that development, but also other people in that area. And again, I'm not an expert on this project. Should probably have Dennis answer these kind of questions, but at least that's my understanding of it. So.
The 350,000, that's not a set figure. I mean, it could be more or less.
Correct. It's just an estimate at this time.
Okay. And again, that comes out of the water and sewer fund.
That's my understanding. That's what it would be, the water and sewer infrastructure.
And it's paid back just by increased taxes on them?
Yes, correct.
Specifically on them?
Well, their tax base would go up because they're going to put development into that project, and so the tax base will increase.
Okay, generally,
And
the tax
also-
base goes up. Generally, you're going to get in fund
And
an
also
increase.
water and sewer usage would go up because right now there's nothing being used out there. So
Got
that
it.
project would not only benefit the general fund, but the water and sewer funds. as
So we're going to see a good return overall.
That's
in
what's
theory you'll-
being projected, yes.
Okay. Commissioner Baldini?
My understanding was that we didn't approve this project. You told us you were in negotiations on it, and it'll come back to us at some point. And it wasn't, it was put on page 13 to be there as part of the budget for capital outlay this year, as I understood. I always understood that it was not part of a bond issue, that it would be a water sewer project, but that it wasn't
It's probably going to be part of a bond issue.
under a water sewer project, under the
Yes,
water sewer,
correct.
but not the
Exactly.
city bond for trucks and things of that nature. And that you were entering into negotiations, and
Correct.
you were letting us know that you were doing it. 'Cause I
Correct.
didn't think that anything was finalized.
No, and nothing is finalized. And like I said, by putting it in on page 13, it's not saying you're giving us permission to move full speed ahead with it. It's just allows us to put it into the budget and allows us to start proceeding with those kind of talks. And it could be that, the developer decides they don't want to do it. And it could be where the developer wants to do it, but once we start looking at the numbers, we say, well, it doesn't really work for us. So there's still a lot of opportunity to not do it. So, like I said, the only reason it's on here is to get it into the budget to allow us to proceed with those kind of talks.
Commissioner Frazier?
So basically what you're saying, Gary, is like what you told us before. You're not doing anything until they sign an agreement with you to say, okay, we will invest in this property, we'll do all this great stuff with the property if you do this, and you'll say, okay, we'll put a new sewer line in if you sign a contract that says you will build this property up or do whatever you want with it. I think that's a great idea. I think you kind of treat this as like a mini, instead of the brownfield getting money, the city will get money back, and I think you can look at the way they work. You probably know how they work more than we do. So look at how their funds are paid back. I think it's a great idea. Basically, use as like a city brownfield, basically, So the city gets paid back instead of the brownfield, not to insult
Yes.
them, but the city gets paid back instead of the brownfield. The city would get paid back eventually for it, so I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, that's a way to look at it. So.
Commissioner Connolly?
Well, I'm willing to continue listening about this proposal, as long as nothing is set. We have yet to see, and this would be a developer agreement rather than a TIF, is what it is, essentially.
Correct. Yes.
Although we may think at this point in time that this is the only time that we would have a developer's agreement with this developer, make no mistake, if we're setting policy. With this agreement, we're setting a precedent, and we'll have others that come to us with proposals like this down the road. And with the saying that you did it for one, you need to do it for us. Then maybe even a legal basis for that too. So we'll have to be very careful about how that developer's agreement is set to make sure that it's to mutual advantage and will continue to be to the city's advantage when applied to other cases down the road.
Yes, sir. We will be extremely careful in how this is set up because this is kind of charting new territory for us. And, you know, like you said, once we do it for one, we're going to have all kinds of people coming at us. So we're going to have to be very careful how we proceed with it. And we will certainly take that under advisement.
I keep looking to see if Ron's listening, because. I am listening. Okay. Just one other small note. This could come up again, and I agree with everything that we need to be protect ourselves and be, make sure we're not putting ourselves in a spot where we can't succeed. But in this particular instance, it is unique in that, we've had water issues down there since the hotel closed. I mean, we've had other developers approach that property and back off because we couldn't provide the proper water, especially for fire service and to pass, inspection. So I guess what I'm trying to say is this has a little unique flavor to it, and that I don't know, and if we're set precedents this way, and this is one of the things we'll find out, if by doing this we're setting precedent for all developers, but this is taking care of our infrastructure. It's not taking care of the infrastructure that they're going to put in related to the building. Often, so I mean, this is something that nothing will ever happen down there until we do something like this.
Isn't it kind of like just the city's expanding outward is the way I see it?
We have
easy.
water and sewer down there now, but
It's not sufficient.
60s, and
It's not sufficient.
It doesn't meet code. I mean, we've had, I believe, similar situation on 553 towards the ski hill when we didn't have water to help with fire code and things like that. So I guess what I'm saying is not every construction project is going to have this unique necessity, and which is one of our motivators to do it. It's to improve our situation, not just to give them the benefit too. So
Correct. Okay, moving along. Any more discussion? Are we, Sarah?
I just want to say that it's also setting precedent that we're raising water rates 10%, and this is nowhere near the urgency of replacing taxpayers' Orangeburg pipes or whatever else they've got going on. And we know how bad of shape we are. We have to bond for our water and sewer fund. They're enterprise funds, meaning they should be self-funded. They're not at all. Look at what we bond for, and when you follow the money, those projects, a lot of them go back to water and sewer. So I think politically, this is probably not going to go over well in a year where we're raising water and sewer rates 7 and 10%, and I'm worried about that.
Tom?
Well, the increase in water and sewer rates was in the budget prior to any discussion of the other property. And I agree with Commissioner Cambenzi that we should assess funds greater than the cost of providing the service so that you put the money aside. But we haven't done that. There are very, very few. When I used to work with USDA, that was the thing that always struck me. We never required people to not only pay for the bond, but also mandate to set money aside for the future use. And Commissioner Cambenzi is correct. We're not paying for that, but this year we are trying to raise our fees to cover the actual cost of those funds. I would agree with her, and I don't even know what it would cost us to set aside. We do have a fund, and we do have some money there, but nowhere near what we would need to do some major projects. And whenever we do some road projects in town, we do the water and sewer on those streets, and that's a different fund. But you are right that we should have that money set aside, and it would be nice if the government would mandate that. We are the government for the community, but when you get some of this other money, it would be nice if they said you can only have it if you pay for it, plus you have to set money aside for the future use, and which would be beneficial to all of us. Thank you.
Okay, are we past budget wrap-up yet? No, that's what we're stalled on.
I have comments on the budget, but I could do it now or at my commissioner comment.
Commissioner comment.
Okay.
Okay. Are we moving? Okay. All right, we're going to come to public comment. This is the time when you may address the commission. I'm going to open public comment. Anybody wish to address the commission? Anyone? Seeing no one? We'll close public comment. We're going to move to comments from the commission. Commissioner Conley.
Well, it's been said tonight once, and I'll say it again. I've said it before too. I'm really concerned that we're getting into even more difficult times. The power plant, which is our largest taxpayer, is closing in 4 years, and we're going to lose that tax money. MERS, our Michigan Employment and Retirement System, has given us unrealistic estimates of how we're doing, and we're not doing that great either. One of our funds is funded at 63%, and that's based on a very unrealistic income projection that will have to be revised again and again and again downwards. So we're going to be having to fund more and more liabilities. These are promises we made to some current and some retired employees, and I feel we need to honor those. Will the state fund us and bail us out? No. If we don't do something ourselves, we're going to have to decide whether we're going to meet our own promise or not. Other communities are already past the point of bailing out, and I'm concerned that their rescue will be the Detroit Dive, Chapter 9. And I wonder if that's the long-term plan here that nobody wants to talk about. I don't want to be a part of that. I want to fund our liabilities and honor our commitments to our employees and our retirees. So I think we have to look at, continue to look at our budgets. I'm going to vote in favor of this budget, but I think we need to, in the next year, start ahead of August and start looking at other things. We've talked about revenue sources, and I think we're going to have to look at that. This budget that we're about to adopt has over $500,000 in subsidy for 2 facilities, the cemetery and Lakeview Arena. That's almost $750,000. If we put that as a line item on on our tax bill, separate it out and put it as a line item and say, thank you very much, you are subsidizing the cemetery. And it's understated because the cemetery is $200,000 less than revenue, and that doesn't include the Public Works Department maintenance on it. Lakeview Arena is stated to be about $280,000 less than revenues, and it understates a lot of its expenses too. Vehicle deferred, and there's some income that we actually can't collect, some concession income that we've budgeted for, and the last concessionaire couldn't make any money and pulled out. How are we going to do that? So you really have to assume that's over $300,000. So you have over, in just two facilities, $500,000 in subsidy. Can we afford to continue to subsidize that? I think over the next year, and I'm not going to say we need to do it by September, whenever our public hearing is, we need to adopt it. This is a bigger project than this. It's going to take some more. But I will move at the September 12th hearing, or after the hearing and at our meeting, that we direct the city manager and his staff to come up with a plan for reduction of the subsidies for particularly those two facilities, and that we adopt fees that will help to reduce those deficits and will help the city meet its obligation that we already have. There's other places that we need to look at revenue. We talked tonight about, as Mona Lang came here from the DDA, she said parking is a revenue center, and we're going to have to look at that too. We provide a lot of free parking. When we may need to say, well, if using the facility might be free, but if you want to drive there and park within 50 feet of the door, it's going to cost you something. Who doesn't pay for parking when they go other places? So I think we have to look at things like that. It's not going to get done in the next 2 weeks. And I don't mean to hold this whole process up. We have to move along. But I really think that we're going to have to, and I will make a motion at our meeting in a couple of weeks as we look at this budget to look ahead to the future, to reduce subsidies and reduce our deficit, and also set aside those monies. That even though MERS tells us we don't have to put them aside, let's be real, we're going to have to. We're going to have to do a big catch-up, and if we aren't, and in the face of decreasing revenue, tax revenue, we're going to have to find some way to come back with it. We can't continue to provide services to everybody and meet our obligations with less revenue. So we're going to have to be creative on this. So I'm not going to do anything now. I support this budget. We'll continue to support it, but I think we're going to have to do some longer-term planning over the next year and be ready for this time next year.
Commissioner Plort?
I'm happy with the budget. I think the city staff did a great job with it. I don't have any concerns. I think the infrastructure work with Nordic Bay is a great idea. I think it's an investment to bring more revenue back to the city, and that's what we're looking for, and that's what we're talking about. And I think we need to really concern ourselves with this budget at this point, as Commissioner Connolly says. I also think that it also illustrates that we are suffering a lot from less revenue from Lansing. That's been an ongoing problem. And I think if you're a taxpayer in the city of Marquette and you have an issue with this budget, you need to get with people in Lansing and you need to express your displeasure via email, send letters, make phone calls. Do what you can to everybody in Lansing, not just our representatives, but everybody else in Lansing, that the city is not getting enough money, and it's just as simple as that. Do we have to be fiscally conservative? Yeah, absolutely we do. But I think we are. And I think with a city this size, there's two issues here. First of all, there is a Marquette that we really, really want as citizens. And when you look at the strategic plan, you look at the capital improvement plan, that all falls in line with the, quote, Marquette that we really want. It's not something we can necessarily define, but it's something we all understand what it is. The other thing is, too, yeah, we do have to find alternative ways to finance what we want and what we want the city to be. But I also think beyond all that, that we can get too fine-tuned with that. This budget already is fine-tuned. I see no concerns with this budget. Costs are going up. Yeah, some costs are going up. But I think departments have already looked at what they can cut. One of the things I've heard consistently throughout these budget hearings is we're not spending money here, we're not spending money there. We're spending money here based on what we have to have. It's bare bones. So I'm not going to complain about the budget at all. I'm going to support it. I'm going to vote for it. And I don't disagree with Commissioner Connolly when he says, can we work a little harder, a little earlier on what we can do? Yeah, I think we can. I'm not as concerned about bonding as some people seem to be because we're handling the bonding very, very well. And I think it's fair to make investments, and I think that's been going on in the city. And I think the city should spend a few bucks here and there to bring a lot more money back. So I'm in favor of that as well. I don't see the issue that apparently other people see with that. I think we can be satisfied with this budget. I'm satisfied with it. I also like, the last thing I want to mention is a lot of the projects that are in this budget are not etched in stone. This budget gives the projects, gives us the opportunity as a commission and you as an opportunity as citizens to express your opinions about these projects before they actually happen. It just puts them in a position to make that happen. So if you have issues with particular projects as they come along, then that's going to be your time to express your opinions, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Commissioner Baldini?
Thank you, Your Honor. I've already stated somewhat of my position on the budget and for it, but I think it's also a budget that probably tells us about the canary in the mine. We know it's coming, and I don't think we're close to Detroit, okay, and that's in that way. And if we are, the entire state is there. But I do think it gives us the opportunity to start looking and to say, what are we going to do? And I know that we have some things. Recreation is a big item in this city, and a couple years ago it was $65 a person we were spending. But it makes Marquette Marquette. How are we going to continue that? And how are we going to sustain it and pay for it? And we're going to have to look at not only the expenditure side, but also the revenue side on some of this. I think Commissioner Conley's point that maybe we have to start earlier. Putting this budget together is a lot of work for the staff, but maybe we have to just take it off in a different trajectory to start talking about some of those other macro type things. But so
September 13th.
Pardon me? Yeah,
We'll start
right.
September 13th.
So thank you.
Commissioner Frazier?
I'd like to thank staff for all your hard work doing all this, and having to deal with Gary and all your budget stuff is probably not fun, but I asked some of my fellow workers that do this accounting stuff every day, so you want to come to our meetings only 3 hours long, and it's all about budget and money. He said, no, we deal with it every day. We don't have to deal with that. I said, okay, I understand. And look forward to Harbor Fest this weekend. I think it'll be fun. Just a word of caution to people, if there's anybody out watching our fun budget meetings, there may be decreased parking because I think they're having a fishing tournament, so there's probably a lot of parking with truck and trailers down there for people doing the fishing tournament. The tall ship should be great, and I think it's going to be a problem for the city when the Prescott Apartment does close eventually, but I see in the next, I'd say, I give it, if it closes in 4 years, I say another 4 years, somebody will look at that property and want to develop it. I don't know if it's going to be brownfield money or what it's going to be, but I feel it's a great property, and I think somebody would want to turn it into a resort, or either I was talking to people from this boat crew, I said, there's no place in between Duluth and Sault Ste. Marie that has a shipyard. Maybe we could turn it into a shipyard. I don't know what developers would want to think. That's not a bad idea, of a place to work on boats that would be outside. There's a couple of places around here, but there's not many. Maybe we turn it into development. Maybe somebody want to turn it that type of development. Who knows? But I think it's something that we could look at, the city could look at. But I think we have 10 years before anything, 4 years, and another 4 years maybe to clean it up. And I'd say in the next 10 years we'll know something's going on down there.
Commissioner Cambenzi?
Well, I'd like to start off and just thank staff for all their hard work on this. One thing I've noticed over the last 4 years is that every department head comes up here, and really you can tell that they treat the money as if it was their own, and I think that's huge. I think it goes a long way with the taxpayers. Chief Rebolt was up here, why don't you get 8 keypads for your vehicles? Well, I only need 5 because I'm thinking that it might be a waste of money. I mean, that is how the average person thinks about their money, and to see the department heads come up here and do that, every single one of them, that speaks loudly for the type of people that are working for the city. I think Commissioner Conley hit on something that is very hard to do when you have term limits on a city commission, and that is have a long-term financial strategic plan, a plan that really looks at 5, 10, 15 years out as best you can. We know we're losing the power plant. We think about these things, we say these things, yet another project will come up, a developer will come up. Well, we want to do this, and we just need to borrow a little bit of money out of the water and sewer fund. We forget all of our debts and all of our commitments and all of those going away, I think, at times, if we don't have a strong plan in place. And we have nothing to hand over to the new commission that comes. And I think to have a strong strategic financial policy and start on that now for next year, I think we'll feel better. I'll feel better going forward, and certainly when I get off of here, that I did my best not to leave a future commission and the taxpayers with unfunded liabilities. I think that's really, really important. And how we do that, I don't know, but I think it's great to start the conversation now and let the public know that we're serious about it. I think that'll go a long way. So that's all. Thanks.
I also would like to thank the staff for their hard work on preparing the budget. It's never an easy task. I think it's a reasonable and a doable budget. Nothing outrageous about it. The problem, of course, is lack of money, which comes from we're not getting state revenues from the state of Michigan, from Lansing. We have unfunded liabilities, of course, and the potential loss of tax revenue. So we're not getting the money that we have gotten in many years past. We're going to have to address that. We're going to have to figure out how to live with that situation. Thank you, City Manager.
Good, thank you. Good. Sure.
Oh, no. Can you celebrate? This is a challenge that
Thank you, sir.
kind of not necessarily look forward to.